This young warrior is incredibly fierce. He is our main character, El Paomi, an unfortunate man who was brought into the portal by a group of adventurers and treated as a sacrificial pawn. They intended to use him as a decoy to escape when necessary, but they didn't realize that El was incredibly strong and everything was already calculated by him. In a moment of crisis, he decided to reveal his true power, and with just one strike, he made this monster join the Donut Club, and the reason is that he is so strong. That is because in the future, he is the strongest adventurer, and that is why he appears in the past like this. To understand this, we must go back a few hours to a certain moment in the future. The great city is being devastated by countless monsters. Just a glance shows that there are numerous creatures flying in the sky, and at this moment he is looking ahead and murmuring. But according to his words above the sky, a gigantic three-headed dragon is soaring with other monsters standing beside it that might not even reach its toenail. This is the Dragon King, and after the Dragon King appeared behind him, a blonde girl spoke up indicating that the centaur's lair has collapsed. Now we can no longer rely on the Knights of Sion, the Resistance Army, the Hunters, or all the adventurers and 6 heroes who were once considered hope. They are all dead now, she coldly continued. The blonde girl stared at him and said, "You are the only one left, the last adventurer." Hearing this, he gently turned to everyone and said, "Let's go, this is our final adventure." According to his words at this moment, the gigantic figure of the Dragon King appeared before them, and as soon as it saw the group, the Dragon King Gontai swooped down immediately, opening its mouth wide, as if wanting to devour everything with just one strike, and so it began. The battle between the last adventurer team and the Dragon King Gontai has started, and the outcome is already known. They suffered a devastating defeat after a difficult fight. Now his body is filled with wounds, and around him are the corpses of his teammates who sacrificed themselves in battle, and in front of him now is the gigantic blood-soaked head of the Dragon King Gontai, but don't think this is the end, because the Dragon King Gontai has 3 heads. The head in front of him is just one of its 3 heads. Currently, the Dragon King Gontai is still proudly flying in the sky, and even its severed head is slowly regenerating. It is reviving the part that was cut off. Everything is in vain. He feels helpless, and at the same time, Gontai is diving down from above to attack him. Seeing this, he slowly closes his eyes as if resigning to his fate, thinking this is the end for him. The end of the world and the end of our adventure, he thought to himself, but then immediately after, he punched the ground hard and shouted, "Is this really the end?" He just spoke, and his face was filled with anger and frustration as he thought of the scene of his fallen teammates. Just now, Phillips, Jaden, Alexis, all of them sacrificed themselves. I cannot accept this. He let out a loud scream and began to stand up. Then he looked at the Dragon King Gontai, soaring in the sky with a gaze full of vengeance. At the same time, he thought, I cannot let things end like this. Thinking of this, he began to harness all the remaining power within his body and concentrate it in his right palm as this surge of power gathered. Then a long beam of light began to appear above the waist and slowly transformed into an arrow, and he said that at any cost we will. But before Eel could finish his sentence, the magical energy he was gathering above his hand suddenly shattered, and right after that, Eel also received backlash and spat out a liter of blood, while above in the sky, Gontai was also gathering firepower in his mouth, and just when the firepower was fully charged, it opened its mouth and unleashed a gigantic purple flame column straight towards the waist and facing such a powerful attack. The condition of the waist did not allow him to do anything more. How pitiful, why must it end this way? I must become stronger. If I had just one more chance, Sasuna thought, and then his gaze fell into darkness, and right after that, suddenly a cool sensation hit the waist's face, accompanied by a loud shout. "Get up, you damn bastard!" This sudden voice startled the waist, and he opened his eyes wide while the shouting continued. "Don't think pretending to be sick will work. A slave like you should know your place." This statement came from a bald man who had just thrown a bucket of water in the waist's face, with a very frowning expression, but thanks to his bucket of water, the waist began to regain some clarity and observed around what was happening. Why was I here? What about Gontai? Am I still alive? Wait a minute. This place is a slave market. And to prove the waist's words, at this moment outside, there were countless voices discussing the prices of the slaves being heard. These people had just been brought in here. Using them as bait for the long dungeon is very suitable. Oh my God, thank you. You won't find prices like this anywhere else. This guy looks good. Hey, how much is this guy? You really have an eye for talent, and he was blabbering about such buying and selling, continuously ringing in the waist's ears, making him extremely confused. No way. The slave market has been abolished for a long time, but this place definitely is, and just as he thought of this, The bald man in front began to frown and shout, just a mere slave. You have quite the determination to survive. All of you, the waste, heard him say that, then looked up and stared at this man, thinking this merchant. If I remember correctly, he is the merchant who managed me when I was a slave about 6 years ago. That's right, it must be him if so. Have I returned to the past? The waste thought while staring at this man. And of course, this gaze from the waste made the bald man in front uncomfortable. What the hell are you looking at? He said while swinging his fist straight at the waste's face. That day, I returned to the starting point of everything the waste thought as he took this punch. From the moment the scene shifted to the port city, there was a ship just docking and this young man. As soon as he got off the boat, he joyfully exclaimed, "Ha ha, I finally made it here." But the local people trade in this area. As soon as they saw his industrial chicken appearance, they began to flirt like this sexy dressed rabbit. Immediately, she caught a whiff of money from the young man and said, "Can you buy me a few bottles of medicine?" The young man is like this fish-selling brother at this moment. He was also holding a fish in his hand and invited the young man. "Why don't you buy a few fish? Not just regular fish, but it seems this brother also sells sharks," along with some kind of carnivorous octopus behind. Then a rain of offers began to ring out. "Do you need a place to store your luggage? If you want to explore the world, you need to practice first. Blah, blah, blah." Countless such phrases began to ring out, making the young man's eyes light up. This is the bustling port city, isn't it? And while he was amazed by the sights of this place, suddenly a black guy threw his arm around him and said, "Are you that happy, Raymond?" Hearing this, Raymond was surprised and said, "Walker." At that moment behind them, a voice rang out, "Honestly, I want to experience all forms of entertainment here." Immediately, this voice belonged to this big, fat brother. His name is Taran, and then Taran looked straight at the building in front and joyfully said, "This is where our journey will begin. This is the era of adventurers. A place where adventurers from all over the world gather to create and become heroes in their own journeys. The gate is a portal leading to a special space. No one knows when it appeared, but inside these gates are all kinds of terrifying monsters that cannot be found in the ordinary world. Countless adventurers have plunged into these gates and lost their lives inside, but within these gates also hide powerful and unimaginably valuable items. For that reason, it has stirred the greed of those who want to become rich, and this adventurer group of Walker is also preparing to step into a gate. And to ensure everything goes smoothly, Walker suggested to everyone, "We need a few bait." His words also left the naive young man Raymond dumbfounded, seeing that Walker knew this guy didn't understand anything. So he had to explain, "We can't know what's in the gate until we enter. Many adventurers have lost their lives due to unexpected events. That's why we need a few slaves to act as bait." The only girl in the team understood the issue and said, "So we need someone to distract us when we encounter danger." "I agree, that's a good idea." And just like that, they began to head to the slave trading area to prepare a few pawns for sacrifice. Turning back to the waist, he was still sitting dazed in the cell. Then he thought, "Am I dreaming? This is too real, I can't believe it." But there was no further explanation, and while he was thinking about these things, the slave owner was also introducing Walker's group to his merchandise, "Welcome to here. This market is run by the Gafor Mechanic Association. These guys are slaves used as bait, so everyone can choose freely. You won't regret buying them. I suggest choosing these. I suggest we should choose these guys." He spoke while looking straight at the prison where there was a waist and another person welcoming him, also introducing them as having quite large physiques. They all had good builds. "We just received them not long ago." Walker over here also observed a bit and seemed satisfied, so he said, "All right, I will take both." "Ha ha, that's a wise choice." "Well then, I wish everyone good luck entering the gate," the slave master said cheerfully, and Eel over here also realized this was his opportunity. There was no reason to think too much anymore. This was his second chance, and just like that, Eel was brought to the front of a gate called a gate, but in reality it looked like a red curtain created between two tree trunks. At this moment, Walker also stepped forward, looked at the tree trunk, and said it seemed like no one was inside this gate. Then he pulled out a knife and said, "I will carve on this post so that others know someone is already inside this gate." This also meant that we were the first group. He said this while using the knife to make a horizontal mark on the tree trunk, then turned back to everyone and asked, "Is everyone ready? Let's go." The others in the team, upon hearing this, were excited as if they could see the moment they became wealthy from this gate. And right after that, the whole group stepped inside the gate and disappeared immediately, waiting until they stepped out from the other side of the gate, and before their eyes was a completely different landscape. The scene before them was currently a primeval forest with countless giant mushrooms. Raymond, upon seeing this scene, couldn't help but exclaim in surprise, "I have never seen such a mysterious place. It looks completely different from my imagination." And Walker beside him calmly replied, "No need to be nervous, let's move." This path is usually formed far from the monster's lair, so we are quite safe now. We cannot return through the previous gate, so we need to find a new exit first to be cautious. But just as Walker said this, suddenly strange noises echoed from behind the group. Causing the only girl in the group to be a bit surprised, she turned her head back to look, and the moment she turned her head was also when she saw a monster with giant teeth charging straight towards her, and the result was that she was swallowed whole by this monster, while the group was suddenly attacked right after stepping out from the gate. This made everyone start to panic. "What's happening? Why are there monsters here?" Raymond shouted, but before the group could recover from their shock, they soon discovered their friend was surrounded by numerous monsters, as if these monsters had ambushed them beforehand, or they had unfortunately fallen straight into a monster's den. "Wait, why are there so many monsters?" Someone in the group shouted, and at this moment, the leader of the group, Walker, gritted his teeth and said, "Damn it," and immediately after, he grabbed his wooden staff and began to use magic. As soon as Walker used his magical power, the staff was enveloped. Inside a stream of orange light, it transformed into a shape resembling a bow with the bowstring and arrows made of fire. Then, Walker pulled the bowstring back and murmured, "Rocket," and after saying that, he released his hand, launching this powerful fire arrow straight ahead, piercing a monster immediately. But even though he had defeated one monster, Walker was not any less worried, right after taking down the monster in front of him temporarily. But even after defeating one monster, Walker still felt just as worried right after taking down the monster in front of him, albeit temporarily. To rescue the girl with the striking appearance, he immediately turned around and shouted, "Tie those two bait to the tree. We need to run away from here now." The remaining bait, seeing this, panicked and said, "Let us go with you." But unfortunately, facing this plea was the knife pointed directly at his face by Theron, who said, "Shut up and stay here." Theron yelled while Raymond quickly tied the chains of both people around a tree trunk to ensure they couldn't escape. "I'm sorry," Raymond gritted his teeth and said right after that. The group also fled while the monsters targeted the two tied up. "Don't leave us behind." The desperate guy shouted, and the result was obvious. Shortly after, this guy was caught by the monsters, who began to tear him apart, and at this moment a claw from some monster swung towards him, turning back to the group. Walker was currently supporting the girl with the striking appearance on his shoulder and turned to say to everyone, "This time I have failed. But don't worry about whether we completed breaking through the gate or not. We just need to find a way out quickly. Let's go." At Walker's words, Raymond had no reaction because he was so scared that he couldn't hear anything anymore. The stout Theron, seeing this, got furious and grabbed this guy by the collar. At the same time, he shouted, "He told you to go. You bastard, listen to Walker, calm down. I failed here, but I can try again, so don't give up and keep trying. We will all get out of here." Walker smiled confidently to reassure Raymond, unaware that at this moment, the monster's claw was swinging straight towards him. And next was the scene of Walker being struck down to the ground by this monster. Its blow was so powerful that it caused the ground to crack into many pieces. Walker, seeing this, panicked and shouted, "Theron!" But unfortunately, at this moment, Theron couldn't respond to him, because he had turned into a pool of blood after the monster's blow. The cowardly young man, Raymond, was now so scared that he couldn't stand anymore. Finally, he managed to react in time and began to use fire magic. "This damn thing!" he shouted while drawing his bow, but before Walker could let go of his grip, the monster had already turned around and launched its long tongue straight at him. And this tongue seemed to have a tracking ability. Immediately, it wrapped tightly around the neck of this black guy and pulled him straight towards its mouth, followed by the heart-rending screams of Walker. So yet another sacrifice. Seeing this scene, Raymond was scared out of his mind and shouted, "Help, help!" he stammered while trying to crawl forward. But even if he ran, he might not escape, let alone crawl like he was now, and so the monster slammed straight into his leg, causing him to scream in agony. Raymond gritted his teeth in pain, but at that moment, he noticed someone's silhouette ahead and shouted, "Bait, are you still alive?" "It's so amazing. Hurry up and help me," he said while trembling, extending his hand towards this figure. Then he also said, "My teammates are all dead now. It's just you and me left, right? I'm sorry about what happened earlier. I didn't mean it. You can't escape here alone. Having another person isn't bad, so please." But in response to his words, the figure sitting in the tree showed no intention of moving at all. And this made the guys start to go crazy and say, instead of just standing there, "Help me, you damn bastard." At this moment, the figure smiled and jumped down from the tree, simultaneously saying, "I don't know, it seems like I'm a bit late." Yes, according to his words at this moment, half of Raymond's body had been swallowed by this monster, and by this time, it seemed that Raymond also knew his fate, so he laughed a few careless laughs and said, "Ha ha, a bastard like you can escape from here. The next one will be you." And those were the last words of this young man. Because right after that, the monster closed its mouth, and after swallowing the young man, this three-eyed monster stared at the waist. Next, it slightly bent its body to gain momentum. Then right after that, this chubby monster flew straight forward like a cannonball, and at that moment, it didn't forget to open its mouth wide as if wanting to crush the waist on the way. Facing the monster's attack, Eel began to look at it with a deadpan expression. "No, I won't die here," he muttered as if wanting Raymond to hear. Then right after that, he slightly rotated the spear in his hand and executed a piercing thrust that pierced through the monster's body. The monster, having a large hole in its body, immediately died, and seeing that, he confidently ran his fingers through his hair and said, "At least I won't die here." Next, he also observed his surroundings and picked up Walker's staff, thinking a missile staff not a bad skill. It also suits my current skill level. But this is still not enough. Adventurers need more than just one weapon, otherwise coming back here would be pointless, Eel said while starting to strap the staff to his back. Then right after that, he accidentally discovered someone's leg in front of him. Seeing this leg reminded El of some experiences in the future. That's right. Some people will hide valuable items in their shoes thinking of this. He quickly took off this shoe to check, and just as he had guessed, inside this shoe was a ring. A ring. Ao thought to himself and put the ring on his finger right after that. This ring also emitted a faint blue aura. "This is the ring of force," Eo mumbled, but before he could rejoice at having obtained a good item behind him, the sound of numerous heavy footsteps echoed, causing him to hurriedly turn around and through his eyes at this moment. A whole group of three-eyed monsters had brought their entire horde to deal with him. They must have caught the scent of blood. He mumbled as he saw countless eyes in the darkness staring at him, and then right after that, the whole bunch of monsters seemed unable to wait any longer and simultaneously charged at him from all four sides, while Ao remained very calm after seeing the monster's attack. He immediately swung his spear and pierced through the nearest monster, causing it to turn into a pile of goo instantly and at the same time. A monster nearby took the opportunity to thrust its tongue forward and wrapped it tightly around the spear in Ao's hand, and the tongue of this three-eyed monster seemed to be a bit too strong because it only twisted its tongue slightly and it caused the spear to break in two. Even a seasoned adventurer like Ao was stunned by the scene before him, but before he could recover from his astonishment, another monster opened its mouth wide and attacked him from behind, but Ao quickly escaped from his state of surprise as soon as he sensed the danger. He hurriedly jumped forward while activating the fire missile magic on his staff, launching a powerful fiery arrow that pierced through the monster, daring to attack him. Next, he glanced at the positions of the surrounding monsters and thought about the ring again. Thinking of this, he waved his hand and activated the magic contained within the ring. It seemed that the power of the ring allowed Ao to freely control the direction of the arrow, so he made it fly around in a circle and pierce the flesh of all the nearby monsters, but at this moment the firepower of the arrow was running out and slowly fading away. He couldn't extend it any longer, Ao thought while looking at the monsters he had dealt with, and regained his confidence, thinking that there shouldn't be any problem, mister. He was also about to launch the missile once again. But just at that moment, Ao suddenly realized that the fire missile magic did not activate, and the three-eyed monsters took this opportunity to charge straight at him. Determined not to give Ao a chance to use magic, Ao immediately dodged while glancing at his staff, thinking it didn't seem like it had broken. "Is this a temporary stop?" Ao thought to himself, and at the same time, another three-eyed monster lunged at him. Seeing that he braced his legs, turned around and swung the staff in his hand, striking it right in the face. There was no other way, he told himself, and began to use the staff to beat these monsters. He didn't quite understand why, but our protagonist managed to beat this monster to a pulp using just the staff. Finally, he kicked it, sending the three-eyed monster flying far away. Then after that, he also looked back at the staff in his hand and wondered how much longer it would take. Ao thought while starting to test if it had recovered yet. To his surprise, it really had recovered. As soon as Ao tried to activate the magic, the staff lit up, and at that moment the monsters once again swarmed around him like locusts. As soon as Eel tried to activate the magic, the staff lit up, and at that moment the monsters swarmed around him like locusts once again. All right, one more time, he thought to himself, then activated the rocket magic and shot an arrow straight ahead, combining it with his control. He focused his mental energy to guide this arrow, and as a result he pierced through without leaving any behind. All the three-eyed monsters couldn't withstand a single blow from this rocket. After he had dealt with all the monsters around, the voice of Scarlet rang out beside him. You are not an ordinary slave. Both martial arts and magic, who exactly are you? She raised her voice, and upon hearing her, he was a bit surprised and thought, oh, you're still alive. Ah, I'm lucky. No, it's more accurate to say I'm unlucky. Turning towards Scarlet, she noticed the staff in his hand and exclaimed, Why do you have that staff? And what's that on your wrist? How did you awaken? You're just a slave. Upon saying this, she seemed to realize something and trembled as she asked, Wait, could it be that this is all part of your scheme? At her question, he gave her a sharp look. Staring at her, he said, Are you done talking? Sorry, but you're mistaken. Even if I had planned this beforehand, it wouldn't change anything. I will still kill all of you. What nonsense are you talking? Scarlet exclaimed in shock, but immediately after, her face changed when Elle across from her began to activate the rocket once more and said, I find it utterly disgusting to use slaves as bait like you. After gathering and processing everything, he escaped from this portal and returned to the astonishment of everyone. Look, is that really true? No way a bait slave returned on their own. Whispers began to rise as they had almost never seen a bait survive and return. Turning towards him, he now had his target in sight. The dice had been cast. I need to hurry to avoid repeating the same fate, so first I need to free myself, he thought while heading straight to a large building. And this building was indeed the Adventurers Guild, where at this moment, information about him had reached the ears of the guild manager. What a slave is still alive and has returned? The manager asked, and the staff member across hurriedly replied, Yes, Sir Abyss. Furthermore, he returned without a scratch. Upon hearing this, Abyss questioned, How can that be? How could a bait return unscathed? The staff member across couldn't answer this question, so he shared what he knew. All the adventurers who went with him died inside that portal. Upon hearing this, Abyss's voice became serious. What can I say? He can survive in there by himself. Clearly something is unusual. After all, he didn't escape but returned here on his own. Those who are in debt and sell themselves as bait still end up being bait. Even if they survive and come back, his not running away proves that he knows. It's not easy to escape from our grasp. The only way to be free is death. The recent news came from the GAFO Mechanic Association, right? Why should I listen to this nonsense? He boredly spoke while the staff member here listened. He also mentioned the main point of the information. There's another piece of news, sir, that Slave has opened the first magic circle. At this point, Abyss could no longer maintain a calm expression. He was surprised and said, What you're telling me, a slave who can only be bait opened the first magic circle. At this point, he frowned, thinking that the slave would have to face the punishment from the Mechanic Association, and if anything unexpected happens just as he thought this. The staff member's voice rang out again. He also wanted to change the contract. Change what? Abyss wondered, asking. It seemed he wanted to register as an adventurer. Abyss over here. Hearing this, he began to turn pale, and then he was a bit angry and said, That lawless slave. Who does he think he is to dare? But before he could finish, the staff member hurriedly interrupted. Sir Raken has requested you to personally look into this matter. Hearing this, Abyss quickly sat up and asked in a flurry, Sir Raken is the chief enforcer of the Major Association. Why would he care about a slave? Is it just because of that? No, it can't be. Could it be that, Abyss said while glancing at the file stack on his desk, and after reporting everything, the staff member immediately left Abyss alone in the room, muttering. A bait wants to become an adventurer under the princess's policy, a story about a slave who shouldn't exist. In other words, humans have always been slaves to money. If not, then return the amount I borrowed, or I will have to work hard until I pay it all off. In the exploitation world, those people are called slaves. One day, my only relative, my father, passed away from illness, and I became a slave from then on. The herbs I bought from the GAFO Mechanic Association on credit were sold at inflated prices many times above the market price, totaling 1 million meso. And of course, with a number that has been inflated to such heights, it was impossible to handle. Then he was taken to court and judged that the defendant was unable to pay the 1 million meso. According to the rules, the defendant would have to work for the association without pay until the debt was fully repaid, and thus the life of exploitation for 6 years began for my character. Now it's time for revenge. Returning to the present, Dale was also in Abyss's office having a conversation with him. Thanks to the memories from the future, he vaguely guessed who the man in front of him was. Abyss, isn't he the left arm of Raken, one of the enforcers of the association? I've caught a big fish. Thinking of this, he spoke up, I am Il Payomi, and at this moment, Abyss across from him picked up a cup of tea and said, I know you want to amend the contract. I have heard about you, so I will keep it brief. I will change your contract status to a rank F adventurer. Hearing him say that, he started to smile. He thought to himself that it was easy for him to accept his request, as I thought he has noticed that. I am not interested in playing games with you, so I will speak frankly. After thinking it over, he smiled and thanked him. However, I want rank E, of course. His words also made Abyss dissatisfied, saying, Rank E, why don't you just tell the Adventurers Guild to promote you to rank A right away? He knew that Abyss was unhappy, so he immediately flaunted his information, saying, I have passed through hundreds of gates in the last 3 years as bait, but it seems this information still did not satisfy. Abyss was not very satisfied, but you are still just a rookie. You have never hunted monsters before, Abyss calmly said, and in response to this, Eel immediately retorted, Since when is hunting monsters in the gate a requirement for adventurers? The first adventurer who made a name for himself did so because he survived. The essential thing for an adventurer is to survive and return, El said while looking at him with a serious expression. Abyss also began to think about these words. Information from those who can survive and return from the gates is much more important than personal achievements. Thinking of this, he had to admit and said boldly, I admit you are right. It is truly correct because surviving after 3 years as bait through many gates is not something an ordinary person can do. But that is all you have. You only enter low-ranked gates. Do you really think you can survive in higher-ranked gates? Do you think we are foolish enough to agree to a risky contract where you could die before paying off your debts? Saying this, he took out a cigar to puff on and stared intently at him, thinking it was ridiculous. He should know his place if he didn't want to die just starting out as an adventurer. But still, why do I feel something formidable emanating from him? Thinking of this, he remembered something and spoke up, This is a gate. It can hold 5 people at once and has up to 12 cuts on the outside, that's right. There have been 12 groups buried here as proof. If you can do what you said, I will comply with all your requests, Abyss said while handing Eel a contract, and somehow quickly, Eel had contacted the same group and was preparing to break through this gate. At this moment, the leader of the other team also spoke up, You are the rookie who will go with us, right? Nice to meet you, my name is Char. I am the tank of the team. I heard from Lord Abyss that you were once a slave, is that correct? No, I don't care, so don't worry, and neither do my teammates. As he spoke, he pointed to his teammates behind him, and judging by their attitude, they seemed quite friendly, even though they had heard about his past identity. Meanwhile, Eel heard them say this and calmly replied, I hope we will have a wonderful time working together. I heard you know how to use fire magic, right? Eel casually said, and the black guy in the team perked up, saying, What do you mean you can use multiple elements? Evie over here then explained for him, I heard that mages can only use elemental powers that they are born with, so they don't have items that are not compatible. Elemental attributes with their kind are all useless. Then he moved on to the main issue, discussing that this is enough. You may have known that we are not here today to hunt monsters. Our goal today is to find and collect the equipment that 12 other groups have left behind here, and then bring them back to hand over to the association. I heard they will pay 3,000 meso for each item, Chev said with a smile, but the black guy seemed quite dissatisfied. So he said, Aren't they asking a bit too much? We won't earn anything if we only get a few items dropped from them. The equipment for adventurers is worth over 7,000 meso, and what the association pays isn't even half of that. The guy in armor next to him then reminded him, Stop complaining, when did I complain, that's enough. Is everyone ready? Let's make some money. Chen Ven spoke up to end this debate. Then he led everyone through the portal, and on the other side was a completely different space with a rather mystical purple hue. This place looked bright but a bit scary. The black guy said worriedly, and Chev was now alert, telling everyone to pay attention. There is a high possibility we will have to fight a lot in this forest. So we need to set up a temporary base, first one person in the group noticed. He also pointed to a nearby tree and suggested, How about up that tree with those branches? It would be very easy to hide or move between the trees. Chev, hearing this, turned to look at the tree for a moment and agreed, Not bad, let's do it. Just like that, they began to take out nails and ropes to prepare for setting up the base, while the black guy patted his waist and said, You just rest. Setting up the base is my job and that idiot's. Then everyone quickly got to work, and not long after, a temporary base had been erected on this tree trunk. After the construction was completed, CHEV continued to instruct everyone, "The base is built. Now we will split into 2 groups and search around. Tom, Max, and the 3 of you will be 1 group. We will check the east and west in turn and then return to this place. If anything happens, signal immediately and run back to the base, understood." Everyone replied in unison, and at this moment L also followed CHEV deeper into the forest to search. But after a while of moving without encountering any obstacles or signs, made CHEV wonder, why have we been walking for a while and haven't seen any monsters? And there aren't any items either. Did we come here too early? We will have to go deeper tomorrow. Speaking of which, he thought of something and said to L next to him, "How's your first adventure as an adventurer? I feel nervous." L calmly replied. And in response to this, CHEV was not surprised at all. "Ha, right, who wouldn't feel that way? You know, even though I've been an adventurer for a long time, every time I step into the portal, I feel nervous. I'm a person who easily gets scared. However, I still bravely move forward. Because I have wonderful teammates. It seems quite strange to praise them myself, but they really are good teammates. I feel very sorry to hear your story. Because I have amazing teammates, praising them myself seems quite odd, but they really are good teammates. I felt very sorry when I heard your story. I can imagine how miserable that must be about this topic. Il Paomi, do you want to join our team? CHV said while turning to look at Io, but in response to his suggestion, Io remained silent and said nothing. CV noticed this and immediately spoke up. I say this so you understand, but don't think too much about it. Not long after that, the 2 of them had returned to the temporary base, and when they started to eat, the black guy, Tom, feeling bored, said, "Hey, you 2 didn't find anything, huh?" Hearing him say that, he grumbled, "Do you think finding stuff is easy? Can we not talk about work while we're eating? Let's talk about it tomorrow." Who would die from that? Io listened to them talking like that. He still remained silent and seemed not to want to join the conversation much. After everyone had eaten their fill and fallen asleep at this moment, the guy CH. Evie, along with the others, approached Io and said, "Hey, are you asleep?" In response to his question, Io, lying at the foot, remained silent and did not answer. The guy Tom from behind then spoke up, "Captain, what are you doing that's so unnecessary? This guy is sleeping like the dead, so how could he answer?" He spoke while pulling out a knife at that moment. The whole group shared a very cunning smile. "Dude, you're being too cautious. Did you forget what we put in his food? That sleeping grass could make a monster weighing 100 kilograms fall asleep." Someone from behind spoke up and Tom agreed. "He has swallowed a lot. Luckily, he hasn't died yet. Besides that, how about the rocket staff? It must be worth 10,000 mezzo. Speaking of which." This guy couldn't hold back his greed and began to raise the short sword in his hand, preparing to stab Io while saying, "Let's get to work." After saying that, he thrust the sword in his hand straight towards Ao, but at the moment the sword pierced into the bed. He was startled to realize the feeling was completely different, and right after that, he hurriedly lifted the blanket and exclaimed in shock, "What? He's not in here!" According to the gaze of this black guy, inside the blanket was just a piece of wood that Ao had thrown in to disguise that he was sleeping while the chav and 2 accomplices beside witnessed. This was also surprising. "What? No way!" he exclaimed in astonishment, but this guy reacted very quickly. Immediately, he turned around and shouted to his teammates, "Go find him quickly. He surely hasn't gone far," and just as he suspected, Io hadn't gone far at all, because right after he finished saying this, the tent they had built was hit by a missile from Io, and this tent was partially destroyed and caught fire very quickly. "What's going on with the fire? Why did it flare up so quickly? Grab the food and run, damn it. Is it because of that bastard Il Paomi?" This guy hurriedly shouted for everyone to move, but before he could even take a step, Max beside him looked confused and pointed ahead, saying something vague. The older brother CHEV, hearing this, also felt annoyed and turned around to ask what was going on. But right after that, his voice fell silent because at that moment, in front of him appeared a monster with a gigantic eye, and its entire body was a mass of yellow slime looking like a gooey mess, and it was using its gigantic eye. It stared directly at him, and this gaze sent chills down the boss's spine, making him think of something and mumble, "Could it be that bastard Il Paomi? He used us as bait," and when he said this, the slime monster began to open its mouth wide, aiming straight at them. The group saw this and quickly abandoned their base, fleeing from the tree immediately. Luckily for them, they jumped away just in time. Otherwise, they would have been swallowed whole by this yellow slime. Meanwhile, Ao was sitting on a branch not far away, observing everything. What fools! If you want to deceive me, you shouldn't be so polite. In a portal, there were more than 12 teams that had hired veteran explorers, but that wasn't enough. They even wanted to use themselves as bait. Clearly, they had that intention. Thinking of this, he turned to look at the slime again. Then he commented, "Is that the monster of this region? I guess it has swallowed up the debris, so it's bigger than I thought." Turning to look below, the boss's team was still being chased by the monster pants falling down. While running, this boss didn't forget to curse, "Damn it, why do we have to encounter this freak?" He grumbled, and Max behind him hurriedly asked if the monster knew what type it was. The boss, upon hearing this, gasped and turned back to say, "If I'm not mistaken, that's a golden slim. It rarely appears in the Windfall realm. It's a rare monster that only shows up when a red portal opens. Its body is made of acid, so for close combat explorers it is an extremely dangerous opponent, and the most dangerous part is." But just as the boss was saying this, he sensed something dangerous and quickly turned around to observe, and right after that, he hurriedly pushed Max aside and narrowly avoided a full acid attack. It seemed this was the dangerous skill the boss wanted to mention earlier. Max, on the other hand, still lacked information, so after seeing it unleash such an attack, he couldn't help but exclaim, "What, it can attack from a distance?" The boss began to explain seriously, "That's an acid arrow, a skill that takes the acid from its body and shoots it out." Max, hearing this, started laughing so hard his mouth twisted. "That's insane with a gigantic body made entirely of acid. And it can also attack from a distance. No wonder the previous teams got wiped out clean." And before he could say anything more, the Slim started charging forward like a tank, causing everyone to flee in panic. "It's coming, be careful," the boss shouted urgently. At this moment, someone in the team asked for a way to deal with it. "Boss, how do we handle it now? Is there any way?" "Get out of here first. The acid arrow has a cooldown of just 1 minute. We just need to avoid it and wait for the opportunity to strike at its core," the boss hurriedly explained to everyone, and upon hearing this, Tom next to him quickly slowed down. "So it's now while it's in the cooldown phase, right? So there's still enough time." After finishing his words, he turned around and charged straight at this Slim. To the astonishment of those in front, he let out a shout and jumped straight towards this giant Slim. The boss behind saw this and also shouted, "Wait, let's charge together!" But before he could say anything more, Tom was killed mid-flight, struck by an acid spray that pierced through his body, and this scene made the boss's face darken. "What's happening? Didn't it still have 10 seconds left on its cooldown?" he stammered, trying to answer this question. Then the slime monster began to open its mouth wide and unleashed countless acid attacks like rain towards the group, and the result was obvious. With such an acid rain, the whole group was instantly turned to dust, so this team was wiped out in less than a day, and Io was the only one left. Surviving because he had been hiding on the side to observe from start to finish, it seemed to be over, the boss said, which wasn't wrong, but the Golden Slim would grow stronger after consuming the item fragments, so its cooldown time would also decrease with that massive size and acid arrow skill. Now I understand why the teams that came here to conquer have all failed. Its power is indeed overwhelming. It's so strong that it can even appear at the Golden Gate, a gate that is twice as strong as the Red Gate. It's no longer a monster, and the adventurers of a circle can't deal with it anymore. Io thought to himself after looking at this monster. At this moment, he also felt a bit discouraged. It seemed that there were no items left in this dungeon. The mission appeared to have failed. Thinking this, he intended to turn around and leave. But suddenly, at this moment, the voice of Abyss echoed in his head, "Prove it." And for some reason, when he recalled this phrase, Io stopped and smiled, turning back towards the Golden Slim. At that moment, while moving, he suddenly noticed something. Then he glanced to the side, and right after that, suddenly a missile shot straight towards it, causing part of the monster's head to evaporate instantly, but perhaps because it was a slime-type monster. It didn't die immediately. However, Io was quite satisfied, saying that he had hit its core. "Not bad, just need 4 more shots. "No, at least 5 more shots," Io mumbled, then thought to himself. "It's no longer a problem, I will prove that." He thought while beginning to draw the short sword at his side. It seemed he had decided to go all out against this boss monster. Meanwhile, the Golden Slim also noticed Io and began to open its mouth and use its spit attack against him. Seeing this, Io hurriedly jumped off the tree to dodge. But this slime wasn't going to let go. It continued to unleash a relentless barrage as if it had endless firepower. And standing before this acid rain, Io also felt a bit of difficulty. Then he swung the rope connected to the short sword in his hand and swung it straight at a nearby tree trunk. At the same time, he reminded himself that he had to hit accurately. A normal wizard wouldn't be able to do that. But I will be different because my title in my previous life was the best long-range fighter thinking of this. Io then pulled the rope in his hand strongly to swing his body to the side and temporarily dodge the attacks from the yellow slime, taking this opportunity. He activated the fire missile magic and shot a rocket arrow straight at the spot where he had dealt damage before, and now there were 4 more shots, Io mumbled. The yellow slime immediately spat acid towards Io, forcing him to quickly swing to the tree trunk beside him and quickly climb up. Only then could he dodge this attack. He then activated the missile again to attack, and it was no surprise that this yellow creature took another hit right to the face with 3 more shots. Io reminded himself while dodging the attacks from the monster as it began to go crazy, and he always took the opportunity when it had just spat. After spitting acid, he would attack immediately, but at the moment when only 2 more attacks were left, he could potentially destroy this monster. Suddenly, his missile attack failed, because the slime suddenly coiled its body to the side and narrowly avoided the attack, moving quite quickly for its size. But it's okay, Io thought to himself, and began to activate the telekinesis ring, controlling the missed arrow to turn back and aim straight at its head again, of course, this yellow one. It couldn't think of an attack that could come back, so it didn't dodge in time and took the hit. After taking this hit, its wound revealed a red crystal inside. Perhaps this was the monster's weakness. After seeing this core exposed, Io actively swung forward on the rope for the final strike. He mumbled and prepared to activate the fire missile magic, but at that moment, the monster raised its gigantic hand and aimed directly at him, and at the moment when this giant hand was about to slam into Io, he realized this attack. So Io activated his telekinesis and tried to pull his short sword strongly, but because the short sword was tightly attached, instead of pulling the sword away, Io's whole body was pulled back to where it was, and thanks to that, Io was able to avoid the monster's pounce. Right after landing and regaining his balance, he activated his fire missile and shot a rocket arrow straight at this yellow slime. The yellow slime realized that this attack was extremely dangerous, so it quickly raised its hand in front to protect its head. Unfortunately for it, Io had already planned everything. He just smiled and used telekinesis to control the arrow's flight path to curve down under its hand and slam straight into the head of this monster, causing a massive explosion that its core couldn't withstand the pressure of the blast and shattered immediately afterward. As for the monster, after losing its energy core, its entire body began to swell like a balloon and exploded right after. Io saw this and quickly pulled his legs to run forward to avoid the wave of acid. But the speed of this acid wave seemed a bit fast, so he hurriedly grabbed his short sword and threw it strongly forward, using telekinesis to control it tightly. He took a branch not far away, then he pulled hard on the rope in his hand to create support and climbed straight up to this branch. The acid wave created by this slim was truly horrifying. Everywhere it passed, the trees were corroded with a burning smell. If he delayed even a little longer, he would surely be left with nothing but bones. After waiting for this wave to disappear, El quickly climbed down to return, but suddenly at that moment, he noticed something ahead and hurriedly used his mental power ring, directing it towards the location where he discovered something special emitting a red light. Then right after that, a sphere emerged from the ground and flew straight to his waist. Once it was in his hand, it emitted a layer of red aura. Then it formed a hemispherical shield, currently unclear what this actually was. Not long after that, El had returned and headed straight to Abbas's office. "I'm back," El calmly said, and upon the return of this rookie, Abbas was a bit silent before finally speaking. "So you are not one to brag, huh? But why did you return alone? Where are the items?" El, hearing this, coldly explained. "The people that Mr. Cho put in my group were all rookies. They conspired to steal all my items. When I left the group to escape, they fought the boss monster, and all of them died." "A monster!" Abbas said with a doubtful tone, seeming not to fully believe Cho, but right after that, he was startled by El's words. "It was a female slim. If it was her, then all the items were probably... It swallowed everything," El calmly said, and this result made Cho's face turn sour. "Damn, the items of the Merchant Association have been destroyed, so this mission has failed." Abbas bitterly thought. Then he looked at El and judged the issue. This guy was still alive and had come out with a few rules at the gates. First, the number of people allowed in is limited. Only those who have marked the gate column can enter, and then the gate will be disabled until the people inside are eliminated. Second, the number of people entering the gate is based on the difficulty of the gate and the level of the difficulty circle. The difficulty of the gate is distinguished by their colors. The easiest is the red gate, the hardest is the purple gate. If a person's circle level is higher than the difficulty of the gate, that person will not be able to enter, Third, there is only one opportunity to defeat the gates, which is to defeat the biggest obstacle inside that gate. If someone survives outside, that gate will be destroyed and cannot be entered again. This also means that if someone has entered the gate and come out, others will not have the chance to enter that gate again, so the gate has disappeared. But how could a hunter of a circle like him deal with the slim? Abbas wondered internally, then he spoke up. I understand now. You were just looking for a way to survive while the items were swallowed, so you didn't pay attention to them anymore. Anyway, the truth is you have failed in this mission. But before Cho could finish speaking, Elle on the opposite side calmly interjected, Wait, I haven't finished speaking. That female slim. I have already eaten it, Elle said while rolling up his sleeve, revealing 2 magical circles on his wrist, which made Abbas on this side. After seeing his wrist, he gasped in astonishment. No way! 2 circles, really. Did you swallow the mana stone from the slim, hearing that the person on this side calmly said, I think that is enough to prove your abilities. As promised, place me in rank E. And before this statement from him, Abbas immediately threw himself onto the table and said, I will place you in rank D instead. If you work with me, I will arrange for you to work with a rank C adventurer. Turning towards the side, of course, with this lucrative offer, he couldn't refuse. So he immediately signed the contract. And Abbas, now a bit more sober, thought to himself, looking at Chung, that for an adventurer who hasn't completed 3 circles yet, being placed in rank C seems a bit excessive. The ranking of adventurers is based on the level of their circles. Veteran adventurers are rank A, intermediate adventurers are rank B and C, and novice adventurers are rank E and F. The strength of the circles is the clearest proof of their abilities, but this bastard is not like the others. Just by using the mana stone, his circle level has already increased. He said it was all thanks to his survival instinct, right? Yes, it is survival instinct, but it is also a natural talent. Just returning alive, he already has his 2nd circle. I have never seen anyone with such ability. I need him. Abbas was so happy that he couldn't keep his mouth shut. Seeing him so happy, the other person felt relieved. His attitude had completely changed, and it seemed he was treating him better now. Well, there's no time left. A red portal appeared with a number of 100 people for the raid. It was a major event that all merchant associations were focusing on. And of course, the Gafo Merchant Association was no exception. It wouldn't harm me anyway, since I needed this as a good opportunity to move forward with my plans. Thinking of this, he spoke to Abbas. I have a proposal. Lend me some money. And at this mention of money from L.A., Abbas's cheerful face immediately stiffened. This bastard is demanding a lot, he thought to himself. People say the portal has opened the era of adventurers. But all of that is a trap set by dark mages, causing many to lose their lives in there. Aiming to cut off the future of the adventurer world and ultimately the day of reckoning, all the monsters are just waiting for the opportunity to surge out of the portal, and we will definitely lose. Exactly 3 years from now, the mission that the adventurer world has to face is not far away. Turning towards the side after leaving the association, he still thought it wasn't enough, but it could be said this is a good start. This portal for 100 people this time is red level. Only those who have reached level 2 circles can enter. Normally, the Gafo Association only selects high-level adventurers. They invest in Class 2 adventurers like me because they are targeting that portal. I have earned some money, but spending it all on items is too foolish. Equipping myself according to my level is too expensive. Can I buy something useful with this amount of money or not? L was lost in thought, and unconsciously he walked to the slave market, and just as he stepped in, he encountered a young merchant welcoming him. Thank you for choosing the lead slave market. You must be an adventurer. Let me introduce you. What kind of teammate does this adventurer want to find? A bait or a warrior to fight alongside you? Hearing this, he shook his head and said, I need to find a guide. The merchant was a bit surprised, but then led him down to the dungeon while introducing, this is the punishment cell. This is where we punish those who resist, like the person you are looking for, and not long after. They arrived in front of a cell. The merchant only saw a person tied up inside, so he swallowed nervously and turned to ask, Are you sure you want to choose him, sir? This guy hadn't even waited for the young man to finish speaking when Elle interrupted, knowing he was the one she was looking for, looking into the face of the person being held captive. It also reminded Elle of a bit of memory before the death of someone who hastened the apocalypse of the world of the spirit, the hero Aaron, who had been murdered. The first and last student of Iran was the one who sparked the apocalypse, the murderous hero, and it was him. And at that moment, the one in prison also looked at Elle and said, You came to find me? Do we know each other? Get lost. After saying that, he spat out a life as if wanting to chase Elle away, but the merchant beside him saw this. He quickly turned to say, "I'm sorry, sir, his nerves are a bit off." And L agreed with this merchant's opinion. His actions were different from before he regressed, but now he was just a slave. Treating adventurers this way was indeed a loss. That's really something. Not only was his temperament crazy, but his skills were no less so. Besides me, he was also one of those who drew attention after the apocalypse, both often compared on the scales. Because both he and I awakened in the same time zone, our levels were also roughly equivalent. But the biggest common point between us was, both he and I were short on money. He had a younger sister suffering from a blood disease, but thinking of this, he immediately asked, "How much do you charge?" And before L's question, he began to speak in a taunting tone. "Are you a rich young master? Whatever the price is, it doesn't matter, right? Then how about 1,000,000 meso? Is that okay, young master? If you don't have money, then get lost." But just as he said this, Debo's words fell silent, because he had noticed L starting to reach into his pocket and pull out a wad of cash. 1,000,000 meso was real money, right? Not fake, right? He exclaimed in surprise. Even the merchant beside him was equally surprised and asked, "Are you serious?" L didn't want to answer about the money's authenticity, but went straight to the point. "Wait, let me tell you, this contract lasts for 1 year, profit split 7-3. I will have the right to choose items from the portal." The merchant beside him saw this and his eyes bulged out. He was making a contract with a team member, not a slave contract, but this side. L also presented this contract and said, "Here, look at this contract." Debo saw this and hurriedly grabbed the paper from his hand and said, "Don't go back on your word." After saying that, this young man quickly bit his finger and pressed it to confirm, which also made L think a bit. He agreed without hesitation. Was it because of his sister's life being in danger? Thinking of this, L also became cheerful and said, "If we have stamped it, let's go to the portal now." "Just let me handle it," Debo eagerly said, and L coldly replied, "You have to prove your worth." "You won't find anyone as hardworking as me," Debo replied. Following that, both of them began to pull each other into the portal, and during this time, L had equipped Daibo with a two-handed axe. But it seemed Daibo wasn't very used to this. So he said, "Hey bro, you gave me a new weapon. I'm very grateful, but I usually use a longsword more. How about we switch back?" L heard this and also turned back to say, "From now on, you will learn to use the spear while accompanying me. If you don't like it, just cancel the contract." And when Eel said this, they had already reached the front of the gate, at which point Daibo could also see the information displayed on the tree. Muttering, "Is this how you plan to test my strength with this gate?" Eel looked at the trunk and said, "The red level, the maximum number of people allowed through the gate right now is 8. It seems we've come to the right place." All right, turning to Daibo, he observed his surroundings and asked where the others were. "Our big brother has so much money, so his teammates must all be talented, right? At least there should be a healer. Fighting is one thing, but having a healer is still important." Debo also noticed L turning to look at him with a very unusual expression. "What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Could it be that big brother Daibo is worried about something?" But fortunately, at this moment, EL spoke up about the teammates saying, "There's no need to worry, we have enough people already." And this statement made Debo exhale a sigh of relief, knowing he was just scaring himself again. But before Debo could feel at ease, El pointed at him and said, "This way, Daibo." Hearing that, he froze for a few seconds, then immediately panicked and said, "What? Wait, that can't be!" But unfortunately, El didn't give him a chance to think too much and kicked him into the gate while saying, "Don't waste time, hurry up and get inside." Just like that. Both of them dove right into the gate. At this moment, Debo was furious and turned back to say, "Are you crazy? 2 people entering the gate for 8 people, that's just too much. Do you think this is a joke or something? Besides, I have to use a weapon I'm not familiar with." The more he spoke, the weaker his voice became as he witnessed Eel's fierce expression, but at the same time, in the distance, a cloud of dust suddenly rose, causing Daibo to be startled and pay attention, and the cause of this dust was a group of tree monsters charging straight towards them. With no other choice, Daibo had to grip his weapon tightly and prepare for battle, thinking, "This is it for me." They are known for having hard shells that swords and spears can hardly pierce, and there are so many of them. While Debo was still panicking, Eel had already pushed him aside and said, "Get out of the way, you're in the way." Hearing that Debo hurriedly tried to intervene, "Wait a minute." But before he could say much, Eel had already started using fire magic and pierced one of them immediately. And in Debo's astonished gaze, Eel began to combine and use his mental power to control the arrow, destroying all the other tree monsters, and just like that, the horde of monsters was rushing up. Before they could even reach them, they were turned to ashes by Eel. In just a few seconds, all the surrounding monsters were lying on the ground. At this moment, Eel also expressed his disappointment, saying, "Really now? We just entered and you're already like this. Next time, don't make such a mistake again." And at his words, Daibo could only think one thing in his heart: who on earth is this monster? Scene changed to a certain building. At this moment, inside the building, there is also a person reporting something to his superior. Yes, the merchants have completed the plan, but still need more time, but those who were sent have already been chosen and are ready. "So can we continue to act, sir?" This person said while looking at the back of the man in front, who coldly replied, "Yes. Everything will be according to that person's wishes. The one who will break the seal will return to the group after collecting all the mana stones from these monsters." He also reported the quantity to the group, saying there are 27 of them. "I have collected all their mana stones. Yes, let's go." The group continued. The two began wandering inside this desert. And while walking, the guy thought to himself, "I thought he was crazy, but it turns out he is not just anyone. Is that remote control skill? I have never seen anyone use missiles like that. Being with such a talented person like this, I will definitely make a lot of money, right? I can pay for medicine and living expenses. Just thinking about sitting comfortably and eating 8 gold is enough to go." The guy couldn't help but smile widely. And at this moment, the group was walking in front when suddenly stopped and said, "I see another pile of tree stumps." The guy quickly wiped the smile off his face. He hid behind the wall and peeked out to count about 8 or 9 of them. The number is perfect. Eel said of course the guy was confused after hearing what Eel just said, not understanding what it meant. He felt even more worried when Eel started staring at him as if coming up with some dangerous idea. And not long after he realized why Eel said that. It was because 9 monsters were a suitable number for Daibo to handle by himself, and Eel would just sit back and let him fight easily. First, Daibo threw a stone in front of the tree stumps to attract their attention, and right after that, he jumped down from above and used his axe to split one monster in half. The tree stumps were startled, but then rushed towards Daibo. Daibo was also grumbling inside. "Damn it, do I have to handle all of them myself? I have never used this weapon before, so it's really troublesome. Even if I had 10 lives, it might not be enough." Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shout, "Damn it, boss!" After saying that, he began to swing his axe at the tree stumps. Meanwhile, Eel calmly observed this kid fighting and thought he is only used to using a sword. No wonder his movements are so strange. But then he would see that the spear was the weapon that made him stronger than ever. There is no doubt about his talent, because he is the only one chosen to be the apprentice. Of the hero, the spear Aaron returning to the battle, there was also a flying monster now. It aimed its 4 legs directly at Daibo to attack him, and before that leg movement, Daibo immediately gave it an axe and split it in half right away, and after a few rounds of chopping wood, Daibo gradually felt the difference of this weapon. This spear is both powerful and has a long attack range. It might even be more convenient than a sword. When I relax, it feels even lighter when held like this. This flower spear is not only powerful but also has a long attack range. It might even be more convenient than a sword. When I relax my grip, it feels even lighter. Think about it. Bo also relaxed his grip and held the axe towards the handle to maximize the attack area, and thanks to a better weapon grip, he started chopping. He chopped down the tree stumps without mercy, and even from a distance, one had to admit he was quick to adapt. Even without awakening, his abilities had reached this level. And just as El thought about this, suddenly the ground shook, startling Daibo, and right after that, he quickly looked up at the rock ledge beside him, and just a few seconds later, something burst out from inside the ledge. Then a sharp root shot straight out. Daibo, seeing this, was still confused and hadn't understood what was happening when the root, as if it had eyes, charged straight at him. Fortunately, the root missed, so he was only pushed back by its force. But next, Daibo had to witness something that made him break out in a cold sweat. "What is this?" Daibo stammered as he saw a gigantic triant right in front of him. Just its height alone was already much taller than the rock in front of him. And while he was still in shock at this colossal figure, the monster tree used its roots to attack once more. Luckily, Io rushed up in time and pulled him aside, saving him. After that, Io casually tossed him aside like trash, mumbling that it was just big and bulky. That makes it easier to hit. After saying that he used fire magic and shot a powerful rocket arrow straight at the giant monster's body. Daibo behind saw this and laughed joyfully, saying, "That's right, watch this magic." But before he could celebrate for long, the rocket arrow was blocked by the monster tree using one of its branches. It stopped it. Daibo was astonished, and Eel thought, "It's reacting quicker than I expected, but what about this?" Eel said as he began to condense another arrow and shot it straight ahead, but this time, he also combined it with mental energy to control it to fly around the monster tree looking for an opportunity to attack while it was distracted. Then Eel quickly sent the arrow around to strike directly at it. It only needed one hit. Eel quickly drew the arrow back and shot straight ahead, but it only took one hit. Eel reminded himself, but in reality, this tree monster had already grown eyes at the back. Even though he intentionally struck at the blind spot, he couldn't understand why. Yet this tree monster still managed to guess it. It even accurately controlled a branch above its head to block like this and was able to do so. Eo widened his eyes at the scene before him, and because magic no longer worked on this tree monster, he hurriedly ran away from behind. But at least while running, he didn't forget to tell Eo behind him why he was still standing there. If he didn't want to die, he should run. Magic is useless now. Eo heard that and quickly took off running, not forgetting to think of a way to counterattack, realizing that it was not a useless attack that could stop the missile. The problem is those branches above it, and when El thought of this, the tree monster had already caught up with them, striking its legs straight towards the two. And although this attack was not accurate, it still sent both of them flying out. The monster tree took this opportunity to use the branches on its head to attack. Seeing this, Debo shouted in worry. Luckily, Eo reacted in time, immediately using his psychic power to control a nearby rock fragment. He lifted both of their bodies up, avoiding this whip-like strike just in time. It was a close call, thanks. Debo coughed a few times due to the dust upon landing, but at this moment, El also told him to handle the tree roots while he would take care of the boss monster. Hearing this, Debo was startled, looking at the tree roots that had surrounded them without them noticing. What the hell? But before Debo could finish speaking, Eo charged up to attack the giant tree monster. Wait, how is he so fast? Debo was astonished and turned back to Eo. After dodging the attack from the giant tree, he quickly used fire magic and shot a missile straight at the monster's face. Meanwhile, Debo behind him felt frustrated, thinking that without a proper plan, they wouldn't be able to take it down. They had to run. See, I knew it. Debo thought to himself as he saw this attack being swatted aside by the tree monster, but right after that, suddenly the monster's eyes widened because it had just been hit by a missile from behind, and Debo was astonished at this sight. He hit it. Returning to Eo, he calmly controlled the missile to attack it again. Its branches were more agile than he thought, making it hard to control remotely while dodging. He was attacking the gaps. But now I've leveled up to level 2, so I can cast the spell twice. Thinking of this, El controlled the arrow to dive down from the sky and blew away a few branches on its head. Losing a few strands of hair made the monster scream in agony, and beside Debo was fighting off the attacks from several tree roots, feeling very pleased at this sight. It's hard to believe that behind one arrow was another, no matter how fast it was. It couldn't avoid such a continuous attack. Even the tree roots had to concede to this person. He must be stronger than that monster. Debo thought as he watched the monster scream in pain from Eo's arrows, but at that moment, Debo also noticed. The small tree monsters had ignored him and charged at Eo. Seeing this, he hurriedly shouted, "Watch out behind you, they're too many, so I lost track of a few." Debo blamed himself, but before he could worry more, El controlled the arrows to fly back and destroyed all the small tree roots. After that, he looked at Debo with a disappointed gaze. "Debo, can't you handle these tiny ones?" Turning back to the giant tree monster, as soon as it lost the attack from one arrow, it relaxed its legs and began to attack Eo. Seeing this, Eo quickly retreated to avoid. Just a slight lapse, and it has already caught him, Eo thought to himself, but at that moment, another branch swung straight towards him, and the particularly dangerous thing was that Eo was currently in mid-air, so he had no point of support to dodge. Just as the moment when this strike was about to hit his face, Debo suddenly appeared beside him and pulled Eo back. At the same time, he swung the axe in his hand and chopped off that branch. After safely landing on the ground, Debo couldn't help but boast, saying, "Ha, I just saved you." "You should take back what you just said," he said while panting like a bull, and Eo on this side. As soon as he said that, he smiled and replied, "All right then. Finally, you have become useful. Then let's go." After saying that, Eo began to create 2 hovering missiles around him, and since there were no more pesky creatures bothering them, now Debo would officially join the fight and help Eo. "Attack!" Eo shouted and started to control the 2 missiles to launch straight ahead, and immediately one of the missiles blew off a branch of the monster. However, this monster reacted very quickly. It seemed to accept sacrificing one of its arms to counter the remaining missile as soon as it saw its other arm blown off. It turned around and controlled another branch to strike directly at that missile. But at that moment, Debo had approached it from below, and swiftly chopped off the branch that collided with its missile while Io below skillfully directed the missile to pierce through two other branches. This caused the monster to scream in agony, but their actions had also enraged this tree monster. Furious while Daibo was still hovering in the air, it controlled two branches above its head to charge straight at him, attacking from both sides. Io thought to himself upon seeing this, and then he said, "Daibo, I'll handle the right side, so my side is the left," Daibo said while swinging the axe to the side, and this combination of both of them destroyed two more branches, but it wasn't over yet. While falling, Daibo didn't understand why he managed to cling to this tree trunk. Then he ran up like a lizard and he swung the axe to chop off all the branches blocking his way, and while he was fiercely chopping the tree, he was ambushed from behind by the monster using a branch. The blow was so strong that it made his eyes roll back, and he spat out a liter of blood. The giant tree took this opportunity. It opened its mouth wide as if wanting to swallow Daibo whole, but unfortunately for it, Io below witnessed this scene. So immediately he used his psychic power to control a rock to rush up and block Daibo before it could swallow him. But the monster was not to be underestimated. Just as Daibo sat on the rock for less than 3 seconds, it swung its hand to destroy the rock that he was hitching a ride on. Daibo below saw this and was stunned. Things are getting complicated now. Just as he was running and had just sat down in the vehicle for less than 3 seconds, it swung its arm to destroy the rock that he was hitching a ride on, causing him to be stunned. Things are getting complicated now. He silently thought to himself and began to use his power to control countless stones rising up. Seeing this, Daibo quickly piled up a stone. To avoid falling to his death, he also used the floating stones as a springboard to dodge the continuous whip strikes from the monster tree. Meanwhile, Io below was not idle at this moment. He also controlled a missile to fly around distracting the monster tree while simultaneously dealing with its branches while the giant tree was busy looking east. Looking west to counter the missile, Io immediately shouted, "Finish it off!" Following L's words, he quickly approached the monster tree when it wasn't paying attention. And just as he entered the attack range, he used all his strength to swing the axe in his hand straight into the eye of the giant tree. The powerful blow caused the eye to burst with blood immediately. One of its eyes was gone. The pain from this strike made the monster tree scream in agony, staggering backward, and its loss of balance also caused Daibo. He could no longer hold the axe tightly in his hand, and it fell straight down, but luckily for him, he at least managed to land safely. However, it seemed that Daibo was still not satisfied. His gaze began to fixate on the monster with a boiling fighting spirit. "Not done yet, you damn monster," he said while starting to stomp his feet. Then he flew straight towards the monster like a rocket. Seeing Daibo act like this, Io understood and used his power to influence. The axe of Daibo, and then he swung his hand, pulling the axe out of the eye and sending it straight into Daibo's hand. With a weapon in hand, Daibo felt much more confident. "Open wide, I have dessert here," he said as he began to swing the axe at the remaining eye, causing another eye to be lost, making the monster scream in despair, but it quickly suppressed the pain and turned around. It then hurled Io down below. The monster seemed to go insane, opening its mouth to bite straight at him, but Io from behind would not let it achieve its goal so easily. As soon as he saw it open its mouth, he quickly launched 2 missiles straight into its mouth, and the result was not surprising at all. After the 2 missiles entered the monster tree's body, it seemed they had hit the core of the monster and exploded right after and from the outside. At this moment, the monster also screamed in pain as its entire body was being burned, and only then could Daibo sit down and take a few breaths to regain his strength. Behind him, Io confidently stepped up and praised him for fighting well. Daibo, hearing this, glanced at Io and said, "You too," and just like that, both began to look. The corpse of the burned monster lay before them as time quickly passed to the evening, transitioning to a small house somewhere. Inside the house, there was a little girl sitting mumbling, "It's too late. I should eat first and then go to sleep." "Thank you for the meal," the girl said with her hands clasped, but just at that moment, a knock on the door from outside made her a bit puzzled. Then she hurriedly rushed out to open the door and asked, "Who is it?" But she hadn't finished asking when she froze, because before her was a very familiar figure, "Brother," she said shakily upon witnessing Daibo's bloodied appearance. The girl's hands trembled as she tightly grasped her own. "You're back." Daibo on the opposite side gently replied, "Yes." This statement made the girl shed tears, and she hurriedly hugged her brother tightly, happy that he was home, transitioning to a wooden house somewhere. At this moment, Eel was also staring blankly at someone with bruised arms lying on the bed based on the photo placed on the table. It seems that this is a person who is incredibly important to him. He turned towards his waist and looked at the corpse on the bed with a very cold expression. Then he activated his own fire magic and decided to burn this house down. After that, he left without hesitation. Time quickly passed until the next morning when Abbas was still struggling with some paperwork. This matter. The conquest day at the High Gate for 100 adventurers is approaching, but who should I send? Sir Raken will be in charge of this. If I disappoint him, I'm done. The conquest is a major event involving all 10 major trading guilds, which is why it is so appealing. It's because the items inside could contain rare or even legendary artifacts, of course, along with its high difficulty. The three sisters of Natasha from the Golden Ritchie Guild. They possess skills considered unbelievable for a two-circle mage. Compared to them, the adventurers of the Gafo Mechanic Guild are nothing special. But to be frank, the manpower of the other 10 major guilds, including the Golden Ritchie Guild, is very strong. Among them, our guild has the worst and weakest reputation. Although I'm not very sure, and just as Abbas was saying this, his words suddenly stopped because the door to his room was unexpectedly opened, which naturally made Abbas angry, and he said, Who dares to enter the room without knocking? But before Abbas could finish his sentence, he was startled to realize who was in front of him and quickly exclaimed, Sir Raken. Turning to the man Raken, he confidently sat in Abbas's chair and asked how the selection of members for this gate expedition was going. Hearing this, Abbas hurriedly bowed his head and said, I'm sorry, that's still not finished. I see you're working a bit slowly. Not like usual. What about those adventurers you mentioned earlier? Drakenfana said, and in response to his question, Abbas recounted everything about the situation with Ao Payomi. I'm still quite worried about him. The boss's team is all dead. There's no way to confirm what happened there. Because there are no witnesses, he might be really good, but when it comes to important matters... Abbas didn't continue, but Raken beside him understood too well. So he spoke up. Then why don't you try again? The event only happens once, right? We can create a group of candidates who are under observation to test each other and let them break through any nearby gate. Quite a few people will enter there. Thus, we will know everything about them. He said this with a very cunning smile, and not long after that. L's group was also requested to go to the gate arranged by Raken, and currently there were quite a few people here, which surprised Debo. Oh, there are many adventurers this time. Meanwhile, at the opposite side, a voice spoke up. Io, are you part of the 5-man group 2 slaves, huh? This was said by a guy dressed quite ruggedly. His attitude, along with those in his team, looked at Io's group with extremely contemptuous eyes, and not just this group. After glancing around a bit, Io also noticed that the eyes of the others were looking at them with no goodwill at all. No matter how you look at it, they clearly did not. Welcome as slaves to them are just troublemakers. That is an unwritten rule among experienced adventurer groups. It seems they are those who have awakened 2 true magic circles. They definitely look stronger than the boss's previous team. Therefore, they can be considered strong enough that they don't need to bait slaves for anything. And while Ao was thinking about this abyss and his 2 bodyguards had already appeared in front of the group and said, Are you all here? I'll keep it brief. The trial will begin in a few minutes. Whoever shows their potential will be given the opportunity. The guy with the red armband was surprised to hear this and said, What opportunity? The opportunity to participate in the conquest alongside 100 abyss creatures. The smiling abyss replied to them, and this truly surprised the guy with the red armband. 100 portals, 100 people. He turned to the abyss and continued to draw a picture for everyone. You will receive special treatment when demonstrating your strength at this portal. His words also caused a stir among everyone, and only Eel was the only one who remained calm, realizing what was going on. So this is his scheme. He thought to himself, Let's do our best. Abyss encouraged everyone, and then they all moved together into this portal that could hold 40 people. After everyone came out from the other side of the portal, the scenery hardly changed. The guy with the red armband saw this and muttered, Another portal with the forest, huh? He then glanced at the sorcerer and said, I will only cooperate when fighting the monster, okay? Split up to explore, search for everything, and regroup when there's a signal. Just like that, this group of people began to separate into smaller groups and went off on their own, leaving 2 people from the group alone. Yes, turning to the sorcerer's group, he also instructed the others, We don't have much time, focus on hunting, yes, Sir Dora. The girl behind hurriedly said yes, then this guy, Doraemon, also noticed some faint sounds ahead, so he paid attention and followed his gaze. At that moment, behind a tree, there was a tiny monster resembling a spider. But since this monster seemed quite weak, Doraemon didn't pay much attention. Just one monster, is it another mushroom monster? What a waste of time, he said while starting to use his magic and created a blue energy ball, then shot it straight ahead, causing a significant explosion. This is truly boring elemental magic. Grab its magic stone and let's go, Dora said to the people around him, but right after that, as the dust from the explosion began to slowly clear away, it revealed the figure of the mushroom monster, which was still intact and only had a few scratches, and this scene made Dora unable to believe his eyes. What, it's not injured at all? It's strong enough to withstand first-level magic, he said. A bit frightened, but his black-haired teammate immediately drew his weapon and reassured him. It's okay, we have many people. And just as he finished saying this, suddenly countless wind sounds echoed in their ears. Seeing this, Doraemon quickly reminded everyone that something was off. Everyone be careful, and it didn't take a few seconds before they were surrounded from all sides by numerous mushroom monsters. Damn it, we are completely surrounded by the mushroom monsters! Someone in the group shouted, and after a long and arduous battle, they finally dealt with these monsters. Finally done, Doraemon said while panting, but at this moment, the only girl in the group also noticed something unusual and asked Sir Doraemon, "The monsters are stronger than we thought. What should we do now?" Doran, hearing this, thought for a moment and then replied, "We will have to fight an unimaginable number of monsters. If this continues, we will exhaust ourselves soon. And if that's the case, it could be life-threatening. Just ignore the previous agreement and go fight the bugs alone quickly, before we run out of strength because of these little monsters." Turning towards the waist, he also spoke to Daibo in front. Most other groups would think the same, while Daibo on the opposite side was panting like a cow and struggling to respond. "I hear you, that makes a lot of sense, but why are you just standing there talking instead of helping me? There are only 3 monsters, it's so boring," turned back towards Daibo after trying to catch a few breaths. He managed to regain his composure and said, "Anyway, you said we shouldn't waste time like this. That's right, let's move on. We are going to take down the bugs." Debo said, "Let's clear the monsters first," coldly ordering, but this command also surprised Debo, saying, "What? You just said we shouldn't waste time." Hearing this, the waste also began to explain that it's something everyone does. "So we will clear the monsters first. Defeating the bugs is not the only evaluation criterion. The ability to clear monsters also counts. Moreover, the more people gather at the boss's location, the more dangerous it becomes. You won't know what those people are plotting. Not all schemes will be obvious on their faces, but hidden deep within their hearts, they will always be scheming something. And I feel there's something dangerous here too," he said while glancing up at the sky, turning towards Dora's group. According to the plan, they were moving to fight the boss. And while moving suddenly, the girl in the group pointed to the side and reminded Mr. Dora, "Look, there's an exit." Hearing that, everyone turned their eyes in that direction. Her hand, and in front of them, there really was a small stone yard with 2 pillars on either side, which made Doran a bit happy. He didn't think he would find it so quickly. "It's okay, just mark it down." "Yes, sir," the girl hurriedly said, but suddenly at this moment, the blue-clad teammate in front of them suddenly laughed like he was rabid, and this laughter also made Doraemon a bit uncomfortable, saying, "What's wrong with him? Evan, shut your mouth." But in response to his reminder, Evan only laughed louder, as if he would die if he didn't laugh. At this point, Doran was really annoyed and raised his voice. "Do you hear that? If this continues, it will attract monsters here." And Evan, upon hearing this, tried to turn around and revealed a very strange face. His mouth was smiling, but his expression looked like he was crying. Sweat was pouring down his face like a stream. Even the veins on his face were prominent, as if he was trying not to laugh but couldn't manage it. "What the hell?" Doran exclaimed in shock at the expression, but right after that, the laughter of the other teammates began to echo behind him. Doran hurriedly turned around and discovered that the whole group was enveloped. Inside a purple mist, with the instinct of an adventurer, he immediately made the judgment that this was poison gas. Things were bad. I need to get out of here right away. Thinking of this, the guy ignored his remaining teammates and rushed straight towards the gate to go outside, but at that moment, behind him a loud inhaling sound echoed, and the source of this sound was a gigantic mushroom with a terrifying appearance, which was also the one that had spewed out the poisonous bones. All of these bones were ejected from the holes in its body as if it were a pneumatic pump, and in front of such a large amount of toxic smoke. Finally, Doraemon couldn't hold back anymore. He began to laugh as if he had rabies, returning to the group of people who were now moving along some river. While moving, Daibo also thought aimlessly about how he hadn't fought at all the previous day. So should he, and just as Daibo thought of this, suddenly something appeared in the sky that caught his attention, and following Daibo's gaze, a flare was launched into the sky. Both of them immediately recognized it as a signal flare. "Hey, they found the boss!" Daibo shouted, and both quickly moved to the position where the flare was shot. Although they saw other groups waiting here, Debo was still a bit surprised. Even though they had discussed signaling to gather when they spotted the boss, he didn't believe they would actually do it. Turning to Io, he didn't pay much attention to Debo's words. He started staring at the group in front and thought they were missing one group. And the guy with the red bandana. After seeing them arrive, he spoke up. "Looks like we have enough people now. Let me explain the situation." But before he could say anything more, the purple-haired girl beside him asked, "Where's the team of the wizard Doraemon? Forget about them. We've waited too long already." "We found the boss's location and saw the scene of Doraemon's entire group being wiped out. That boss is the frenzied poison mushroom." As soon as the purple-haired girl heard the name of this boss, she couldn't help but scream, "What, the frenzied poison mushroom?" Not only her, but the other members also began to murmur, "We're in big trouble now. With so many people gathered like this, they might not even be able to take down that boss. If they encounter the frenzied poison mushroom, don't dream about defeating it. Now the only way left is to find an escape route." Over here, Debo, who was like a clueless chicken, didn't know anything, saw everyone discussing like that, so he wondered and asked, "So the boss is the famous frenzied poison mushroom that's hard to fight?" Turning back to Io after hearing the boss's name, he felt it was tough. So that's the one. It really is the hardest boss to fight at his current level because of the toxic gas it emits. He wouldn't be able to get close to it, which also means that no matter how many people there are, they wouldn't be able to do anything. This one, if they want to defeat it, they must use long-range attacks. However, those half-hearted attacks can't deal any damage because it's very strong and fast. Over here, the guy with the red bandana. After waiting for everyone to discuss a bit, he announced some bad news. "Unfortunately, the boss is right in front of the exit, so we have to face it if we want to get out." After waiting for everyone to discuss a bit, he also announced some unfortunate news. The boss was right in front of the exit, so we had to face it if we wanted to go outside. "You go to the bathroom over here." Hearing him say that, he pounded his chest and said, "Are you scared of it? A few bugs are nothing at all. Just one missile strike from me will take care of them." But he didn't wait for the boy to finish speaking. Then Io next to him coldly said, "Shut up. I will die if I confront it blindly. My missiles cannot harm it." Hearing that Debo lost all his confidence, he was startled and said, "Huh." "Why," Io calmly explained, "even the small monsters here are very tough, so the bug monster must be many times tougher." Debo over here, hearing him say that, he didn't know what to say anymore. At the same time, the guy in the red armor let out a helpless sigh and said, "He's talking about things everyone knows. That's why the slaves—" But he hadn't finished complaining yet. Then the teammate beside him spoke up. "Iburu, there's no time to complain. We need to find a solution for this." And just as this guy finished speaking, Io in front raised a hand and said, 50,000 meso, 50,000 meso. There are 30 people here, so that's 1.5 million meso. "Give me that amount and the two of us will act as bait for everyone to escape," Io said while pointing at Daibo behind him, and Daibo over here was going crazy. What the hell is he talking about? Debo held his head in thought, and at that moment Iburu across from him shouted, "Don't be so arrogant. You're still used to the ways of the slaves, but your plans can't compare to fate. That boss monster isn't easy to bait like the others. If we move and it catches you and kills you, we'll die too. Slaves entering the high-level gate are just obstacles. Moreover, what can the guy next to you do? He hasn't even awakened yet. A slave and a two-circle mage can't accomplish anything," Iburu said angrily, and his words also made Debo furious. Debo over here was fuming. These bastards were insulting him. They were trying to provoke him into not wanting to be bait. Turning to Io after hearing this, he still wasn't angry, but calmly asked back, "So what do you plan to do? Do you have a better plan?" "No, right. If you did, you wouldn't need to signal." "Why bother tiring yourselves out? By the way, let me clarify, my group consists of a two-circle mage and a one-circle mage." According to L's words, Debo was startled and looked at his wrist, then exclaimed, "When did I awaken? What since when? Haha, I really am a genius." Io over here, ignoring Debo's joy, continued to ask, "Does your group have two mages?" Hearing this, Iburu was left speechless and didn't know what to say, and at that moment, the girl with purple hair, the team leader, spoke up. "Wait, if you really do that, I will pay, but we didn't bring that much money." Io over here heard that and waved his hand, saying, "No problem, we'll come to collect it after we get out. So if we can't get out of here, you won't lose anything." Nevertheless, everyone here must agree. Now let's make a decision. Well, she wouldn't lose anything, but everyone here had to agree. Now it's time to decide. Eel threw the decision back to them, and of course these people had no choice but to follow Eel's plan. Just like that, Everyone began to calmly move towards the exit gate where the raging poisonous mushroom was currently sitting. It was still happily enjoying someone's body from the Doraemon group, and while it was indulging in its feast, suddenly a rocket arrow flew in from the side. Aimed straight at its face, the direct hit to its head caused a significant explosion, and the monster let out a bit of smoke right after. The master of this attack was, of course, Al. He did this to deliberately attract the attention of this monster. After hitting it, he hurriedly instructed Daibo beside him to move as soon as the creature spotted them, and hearing this, Daibo still felt a bit scared and said, "Do we really have to do this?" But before he could say more, the eyes of the raging poisonous mushroom lit up upon discovering them, and right after that, it charged straight at the two of them like a machine. "It's coming!" Eel shouted and immediately ran back as soon as he saw the monster's speed. "Wow, it's so fast!" Daibo exclaimed, and thus the chase between the toothy mushroom monster and Eel's team officially began. Taking this opportunity, the girl captain shouted to everyone, "Quick, activate the gate before those two get killed." But without her needing to say much, the group was already sprinting towards the gate. Right after that, one member hurriedly slapped the switch and activated the gate. As soon as the gate formed, she shouted, "Hurry up!" after saying that they all rushed into the gate and disappeared. Meanwhile, Eel and Daibo were still scrambling to escape, but they hadn't gotten far when they were blocked by a bunch of tiny mushroom monsters. Daibo saw this and grumbled, "Damn it! Do I look easy to eat? Get lost." As he spoke, he began channeling magical power into his axe and swung it fiercely, slicing through the little monsters that dared to block his way. This was his great slashing technique, but although he managed to deal with these monsters, he had lost a beat, allowing the raging poisonous mushroom to chase closely behind. At the moment, the monster opened its mouth wide to bite down on Daibo Eel. Next to him launched a rocket attack, sending the monster flying backward. But just as Eel had predicted, even though it took a direct hit to the head, it hardly caused any damage. Seeing this, Eel unleashed another rocket attack aimed directly at its head, but this time it seemed the mushroom monster had reacted and dodged just in time. Not willing to give up, El immediately used his telekinetic power to control the arrow, making it loop back and continuously fly in front of the raging poisonous mushroom to block its path. But even so, with the overwhelming speed of this monster, its claws were right behind both of them. "It's right behind us!" Daibo shouted in panic, but fortunately for them, a crack appeared right in front of them. As soon as he saw this crack, he shouted, "Jump!" As soon as he saw this crack, he also said to jump. Then, following L's command, as soon as they reached the mouth of the crack, they jumped down and managed to dodge the slap from this furious, poisonous mushroom. "Hey, you wretched monster, take this," Daibo said while giving it the middle finger, and at the same time his waist began to activate magic arrows and shot one at it, which could be considered a farewell gift. In reality, it wouldn't cause much damage, and both of them fell into the water and were swept away by the current right after. Not long after, the two managed to crawl onto the shore, and at this point Daibo exhaled a few breaths and asked what that thing was next to them. Hearing that, L, while wringing out water from his clothes, replied, "Haven't you heard it's the boss monster around here? It seems we need to prepare better if we want to kill it." At this response from him, Daibo's face went blank. Then he forced a laugh, saying, "Ha ha, are you saying we are preparing to kill it?" "I didn't mishear, did I? You heard correctly." L coldly joked, "Are you messing with me?" Daibo shouted back, and L, surprised, asked, "What's going on? Didn't we come here to hunt monsters? That was when we didn't know there was a poisonous mushroom boss here. Don't you know there's something called retreat?" Daibo raised his voice, and L replied, "You won't be able to enter the gate again after escaping." Daibo thought loudly, "Shouldn't we escape from here? After completing the bait mission, how can we kill that boss? When magic missiles don't work against that terrifying thing. Didn't he say we'd die if we fought that thing?" Daibo turned to L, who seemed to read the thoughts on Daibo's face, and said, "The situation has changed, because the competition has ended. We don't need to worry too much about it, and now, above all, we will have an additional reward. Isn't that great?" At this point, L's face also turned cold as he looked straight at Daibo, and continued, "Are you saying you intend to break the contract with me?" Hearing this, Daibo's face looked a bit dumbfounded, but then he quickly replied, "I never thought about that, but you will pay me extra, right?" Of course, L smiled and said, turning to Daibo, who then expressed his doubt, "At least tell me how we can kill it when neither the spear nor the sword works on it." "I have no intention of sacrificing my life. Is there really a way to kill it?" Daibo said while staring at L's expressionless face, transitioning to the outside of the gate where the group was rushing out. "Well, Abbas was a bit surprised to see them come out so early. Have they gone out already? Isn't this the gate for 40 people? Did they conquer it too quickly? Speaking of which, he stepped forward and asked this girl with purple hair, "How's Reber at the gate?" It seems that a few people have gone missing inside there, haven't they? They are still inside and haven't come out yet. In response to his question, Jaber hurriedly replied, "We have failed to clear the gate. Doraemon's group is still inside. We can only escape when Eel and his teammates use themselves as bait for this boss monster. We can't handle it, it's too strong." Abbas, upon hearing her, began to raise an eyebrow. Then he said, "So you did nothing but run away." Reber thought he didn't understand the situation, so she explained again. "The boss is the frenzied poison mushroom. It's incredibly strong, we can't do anything." Facing Jaber's words, Abbas turned around and told the two bodyguards beside him, "Let's go back." Jaber, seeing this, hurriedly said, "Lord Abbas, wait. Eel's group Palmy hasn't come out yet. The gate is still there. Perhaps they are still alive. They won't survive, it's just a matter of time. Didn't you say so? The monster is the frenzied poison mushroom, right? If you want to eliminate it, you can wait for yourself. I don't have time." After saying that, Abbas immediately left, and at the same time, he looked down on this group of people in his heart, truly a bunch of useless ones. I guess they are really unlucky to have to face that frenzied poison mushroom here. The remaining group inside is impossible to kill the frenzied poison mushroom. Just give up. I don't want to waste time on ordinary adventurers like that. What I want is an adventurer who can defeat that thing. Someone who can turn the impossible into possible. Turning towards the waist, he was standing on top of a high rock and drew his bow, aiming the fiery arrow in a certain direction. "Let's start hunting," he muttered, then released his grip and let the arrow fly straight ahead. The reason he aimed from a distance was quite intentional. This boss is faster and tougher than any we usually encounter. Above all, it uses a poison that spreads through the air, which is incredibly difficult to deal with in that case. It's better to keep the distance and attack from afar, but the magical missile I created doesn't have enough power yet. However, using mental control techniques to twist the arrow and shoot it at high speed would significantly enhance its penetrating ability. This is something I can only do when in the windshield state. It's what I thought of when facing this frenzied poison mushroom boss. A skill to turn the impossible into possible and increase my chances of defeating it. The fiery spear, and as he thought of this, the fiery spear was shot out. It flew right in front of this giant mushroom. Then the arrow pierced straight into its body, causing the frenzied poison mushroom to scream in agony, and with an incredibly powerful force, it successfully penetrated through the giant mushroom's body. However, from a distance after witnessing everything, he still felt a bit regretful. I tried to shoot through its head in one blow, but it seems I missed. This is troublesome. According to his eyes, the raging poisonous mushroom had just been pierced through the left side by the fire arrow, but even so, it was still not enough to trouble this monstrous creature. Immediately, it began to howl as if it had gone mad and turned its face towards the arrow that had been shot, realizing it. Io was drawing the bow, preparing to shoot it again without a moment's hesitation. The raging poisonous mushroom accelerated with all four limbs and charged straight at him like a wild dog, and seeing that he gifted it another fire arrow. But unfortunately this time, with its quick movement speed, it dodged to the side just in time. At this moment, Io also felt a bit of difficulty using the fire arrow while moving to find a favorable position was too hard. Furthermore, the cooldown time of the fire arrow was too long. He had to finish off the boss before it reached him. Thinking of this, he unleashed another fire arrow towards the raging poisonous mushroom just as it reached the rock wall he was standing on, but this crazy mushroom easily dodged once again. But at this moment, it seemed that the raging poisonous mushroom had also noticed something. So it let out some incomprehensible howls, and immediately after that, Io above shouted out right now, and at his command, Debo, who was hiding below, pulled hard on the rope in his hand, causing the poisonous mushroom to tumble and crash straight into the muddy area, and just as it had barely stood up, the axe in his hand. Bo charged towards it at breakneck speed. The raging poisonous mushroom hadn't even reacted when it took an axe straight to the face, causing its blood to splatter everywhere. Next, Bo also yanked the rope in his hand and retrieved the axe, but that was not the end. Because it was falling into the mud, its smoke vents were now completely blocked, and it could no longer release toxic smoke. Seeing this, Bo also reached out to provoke this crazy mushroom. Finally, I can breathe easier now. The air is fresher now. Let's play with each other a bit. Turning back to Io at this moment, he was also observing the raging poisonous mushroom and wondering if the conditions were right. The key to this strategy was to lure the monster into the swamp, because the basic principle of monster hunting is to neutralize the prey's advantage once it falls into the swamp. That means it has lost its strongest weapon, and while he was still thinking, Bo below was also staring at the crazy mushroom and said, "What's wrong? Can't do anything because all the pores are blocked." Truly humiliating. While saying this, he began to channel magical power into his axe. He swung hard, and just as this axe had turned halfway, he let go and sent it flying straight towards the raging poisonous mushroom, but this crazy mushroom also reacted quite quickly. As soon as it saw the axe flying towards it, it raised its hand to block the blow, even though the axe was still pinned firmly into its palm. The moment he saw the axe flying towards him, he raised his hand to block the blow, even though the axe was still stuck firmly in his palm. Bo saw this and immediately yanked the rope to pull the axe back, and right after that, he threw it again towards the giant mushroom and kept repeating this action, causing this furious, poisonous mushroom to be no different from a log being carved with blood spurting from its body in response to Bo's axe swings. After taking several dozen axe hits from him, it seemed to have gotten used to the rhythm, so it swung its hand to knock the axe aside, and then right after that, it took this opportunity to charge at Bo to attack him, but that was okay, because they had anticipated this. The reason we lured this damn monster here was not only to block its pores in a dark swamp, but also because it was the worst map for any monster. The attack depended on speed, just like now. As soon as it moved a few steps, it realized its speed had been reduced by an unknown percentage. Meanwhile, the waist above took this opportunity to unleash its fire spear downward, successfully hitting the crazy mushroom because it couldn't move in time. However, it saved itself by raising its hand to block the arrow. Of course, blocking this fire spear was not as easy as that. The arrow began to twist and pierced into its palm, causing it to scream in agony, and finally an explosion occurred, making Bo wonder if it was dead. Bo spoke while focusing his gaze forward, and then through the smoke he saw the silhouette of this monster. If it was still standing, he cursed the damn thing that was as stubborn as a starving leech. At this moment, the waist above yelled to attack its core, the weak point surely located in the head, and Bo hurriedly said before starting to throw his axe straight at the head of this crazy mushroom, but this furious, poisonous mushroom reacted incredibly fast. Just before the axe blade could chop into its head, it raised its arm and gripped the axe handle tightly. Then immediately, it swung the axe in its hand and flung Bo away towards itself. But the waist above had already seen this scene. So he hurriedly used his mental power to control a nearby log to fly straight at the monster, resulting in the furious, poisonous mushroom getting hit squarely in the face with a log. Bo also conveniently grabbed onto a branch on this log. The furious, poisonous mushroom was unaware that Bo had clung to the log, so it hurriedly swatted the log aside to search for him, but of course it wouldn't be able to find anyone. Because at this moment, Bo had flipped backward and kicked straight into its mushroom head, causing it to scream like a pig being slaughtered, and right after delivering the kick, Bo didn't want to engage further and quickly retreated to maintain distance while also yanking the rope to retrieve his axe. He also took advantage of the rising stones above and continuously moved around the furious, poisonous mushroom to find an opportunity to attack. Seeing this, also assisted him by using his mental power to control the mud and create a barrier that obscured the monster's vision. To further confuse the furious poisonous mushroom, he also directed several streams of water straight into its face, forcing it to hurriedly use its hands to block. But at the same time, at this moment, it saw a shadow preparing to swing an axe towards it. As a natural reaction, the furious poisonous mushroom immediately let out a scream and thrust its claws through the water curtain. And it headed straight towards the figure, but unfortunately it had already pierced through the water curtain. Only then did it realize it hadn't hit anything. The body of Daibo was not there at all. In fact, at this moment, he had somehow circled around to the back of this monster, and he swung the axe straight towards its neck, and with an extremely strong twisting force, Daibo succeeded. He decapitated this monster in one stroke, and the head fell to the ground immediately, while its body still stood tall in the swamp. Meanwhile, Debo started to breathe heavily due to exhaustion, and then he gave a thumbs up to his waist as if declaring success. Seeing this, the one above also smiled, but suddenly right after that, his eyes widened in disbelief. Because according to his gaze, the body of the frenzied poison mushroom, which had lost its head, suddenly began to move again. It was even swinging its fists and launching a hammer blow straight at Daibo's head, causing him to bend down immediately. Then it turned towards his waist. Then it screamed like it had gone mad, leaving Daibo confused about what was happening. Its head was chopped off after all. While thinking, he activated the rocket and fired again. The arrow as it flew down created a significant explosion, but the headless corpse of the mushroom reacted very quickly and managed to retreat to avoid the explosion. Something felt off, and Debo worriedly began to use his mental power to lift the entire log that the frenzied poison mushroom was standing on into the air, and this crazy mushroom was very clever. It immediately took this opportunity to jump straight towards the cliff where Debo was standing and clung tightly to it. Then it used its two hands to climb up like a spider, making Debo sweat a little at this sight. I only have one arrow left, and there's no such thing as cooldown time for the next shot. I can't shoot anymore, and while the frenzied poison mushroom was crawling like a gecko on the cliff, Debo below had also woken up and shouted, "Damn it, I'm really annoyed now!" After saying that Debo used all his strength to throw the axe in his hand straight at the body of the frenzied poison mushroom, this was his ultimate technique, the berserk slash. The frenzied poison mushroom seemed not to notice it, so it couldn't dodge in time, and as a result, the axe chopped through its body, splitting it into two parts. Its lower body was severed and fell down immediately, and Debo below was visibly pleased. He got you! But before he could laugh for 3 seconds, his eyes widened again when he saw the upper body of the frenzied poison mushroom still climbing as if nothing had happened. Cautiously, Debo shouted in worry. At this moment, the staff in Debo's hand also lit up and shot a direct attack towards it, but unfortunately for Debo, this monster reacted too quickly. As soon as it saw the attack coming, it released one hand from the cliff to dodge to the side, and at this moment, a face appeared inside the body of the frenzied poison mushroom. It was smiling smugly as if it had achieved victory. But just as it was smiling, Debo's cold voice rang out. "So this is your real head, huh? Thanks for letting me know." According to its gaze, it seemed that the previous attack, in fact, it was a flare fired from the gun in his hand. The one below was also astonished. The flare attack just now was merely a trick. Turning towards the waist after seeing the true form of the raging poisonous mushroom, he did not hesitate to launch another spear attack straight into the hidden face within the mushroom's body. And it pushed it away from the cliff, and unsurprisingly the spear began to pierce deep into the body of the raging poisonous mushroom attacking this face. Causing it to scream in agony, ultimately its entire body was pierced through, and the cries of this face fell silent immediately afterward. This body was also pulled away by the spear and exploded not far away, accompanied by this explosion. It was the entire toxic gas of the raging poisonous mushroom that was released. The one below was sweating at this sight. It was indeed painful until the very last moment. But fortunately for him at this moment, the one above used his energy to control a rope tightly wrapping around the one below and pulled him up. "I thought I was done for," Debo hurriedly said as he landed, and at this moment the scene on the ground was filled with purple mist. Seeing this, Debo also asked, "It's really over, right?" "Yes, well done, Debo. Quickly collect the magical stones once the poison dissipates." But just as he said this, his voice suddenly fell silent because at this moment in front of him, for some reason, the body of the raging poisonous mushroom suddenly flew up. From within the body came a mournful cry. It seemed that the core of this monster had not been completely destroyed yet. It also spewed out all its toxic smoke directly towards the two people on this side. Seeing this scene, he could only laugh. Transitioning to Abbas's office at this moment, Raken, after hearing the story, burst out laughing. "So that's why you came back when you saw them fail like that. Ah, the spirit is still as vibrant as ever, huh?" Abbas, hearing him say that, also replied, "I apologize, sir. I believe it's best to leave this matter to the Cyclops Knights." But just at that moment, suddenly a knocking sound came from outside, causing Abbas to feel a bit angry and turn back to say, "Did I not say this is not the time for talking?" "Go back, I'm in here. What, how dare you?" Abbas said angrily, but then immediately afterward, his face became stunned upon seeing the image of the one entering. "I have returned," he said coldly, and Raken in the room saw that he was still able to return safely, so he laughed excitedly. "Ha ha, how interesting." Hey, what's with this demon?" he said while turning to look at the demon, who was equally surprised to see Eel appear as if he had just returned from the dead. Turning to Raken, he looked directly at Eel and said, "Nice to meet you. My name is Raken. You are Eel Paomi, right?" "Indeed, you are as resilient as the rumors say. You are the element that our association desperately needs." Eel, hearing this, hurriedly bowed his head and said, "Thank you for your compliment, sir." Seeing his attitude, Raken also happily said, "Good, I like your politeness. I will ask you a question. Do you think you can survive in the portal with those 100 people?" Eel, hearing him say that, pondered for a moment and calmly replied, "It's quite difficult. 100 people did not. Eel heard him say that and pondered for a moment before calmly saying it was quite difficult. And his answer also made Raken here a bit silent while the Abyss guy had gone crazy and said, "How can you talk to Lord Raken like that? Eel, don't think that just because I signed you up to be an adventurer, you can freely say whatever you want. You forgot that you still owe a huge amount?" Eo over here started to close his eyes, ignoring whatever he wanted to say, while Raken, after a moment of silence, smiled and said, "It's quite difficult, which means it can still be done right. I don't like beating around the bush, so I'll get straight to the point. What do you want?" he said, while looking directly at Eo as time quickly passed, transitioning to a tavern. Currently, Eel and Debo are sitting together having a drink, and after Debo heard Eel's request for Raken, he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of beer. "What do you mean 5 million meso for each person? The two of us make 10 million meso. You're asking for too much." At this moment, Eo, who was next to him, had his face covered in beer from the spit of the guy in front and was looking at Daibo with a very cold gaze, causing him to hurriedly say, I'm sorry, but are you being too greedy? Those other guys will definitely refuse this offer. So my first business deal is considered done." Eo, hearing this, calmly wiped the beer off his face and said, "You don't need to worry, they will accept it." Debo next to him still didn't quite believe it, acting indifferent to everything no matter how chaotic it was. "If the Abyss guy goes crazy, he will put me on the blacklist of the association." And while both were chatting, a voice behind them caught Debo's attention. "You guys look too comfortable, not at all like people who just had a near-death experience." This voice was from Iburu, and behind him was also the presence of Jaber. Daibo, upon seeing the two of them appear, immediately got angry and slammed the table, saying, "What did you say? How can you speak to the one who saved your life like that? I have disliked you since you first entered the gate. Go outside and do something worthwhile." But in response to Debo's request, Iburu and Jaber bowed their heads and said, "We are very sorry for having looked down on you two. I always feel ashamed of myself. So today I came here to sincerely apologize to you two. Here is the money according to your agreement, 1,500,000 miso. I have added a little extra as a token of my goodwill for you," Iburu said while handing them a bag of money. Debo, on the opposite side, could only dumbfoundedly take it and said, Oh, thanks." But at this moment, Eo next to him spoke up. "We don't need it. We only take exactly 1,500,000, no more, no less. I only accept payment for work. As for your goodwill, I don't need it." "That's what I needed to say," Eo coldly stated, while Daibo beside him grumbled, "If you don't want it, then don't say anything from the start." "Making me happy and then disappointing me," he said while starting to open the bag of money and return the excess amount to them. At this moment, Eel turned to look at Iburu and said, "The pirate's name is Iburu, right, Iburu? Do you dare to take risks like me just for money?" And this question from him also left Iburu speechless. Transitioning to the office of Abbas at this moment, he was also yelling at his superior. "You can't do this 10 million meso. With that amount, you could hire 3 or 4 circle mages. You can't do that, can you? 10 million meso. With that amount of money, you could hire a wizard with 3 or 4 circles of magic. Even if he is the best candidate available, you shouldn't be so biased towards him. He's just trying to squeeze money out of us. Let me call him here and discuss the price again." Raken glanced at Abbas and said, Do you really think so naively?" "What? Don't you think he will come back and demand double the amount?" Abbas looked confused upon hearing Raken's words, and to explain this, Raken immediately handed over a piece of paper and said, "Read this. This time, the Gafo Mechanics Association will only send a team from El Palmi, but Abbas over here also picked up the notice to read and thought, with only 2 people, what can we accomplish? But he didn't know what was actually written inside this notice, and as soon as he read, a little beads of sweat appeared on Abbas's forehead, and he quickly turned to look at Jaqen. He asked, "Is it true?" The trouble over here also leaned back in his chair and replied comfortably, "If that news is fake, we will be in big trouble. We spent a large sum of money to buy this information." And upon hearing him say that, Abbas gritted his teeth, thinking, the Dark Prince Jin will really be there. He turned to Raken at this moment. He also picked up a pen and pointed at Abbas, saying, "Don't make unnecessary mistakes. The war has already begun." Time quickly passed, and it was time to raid the Red Gate with a total of 100 people. Currently, there were quite a few adventurers setting up tents here to rest and wait for others, and at this moment, Eel and Daibo had also arrived. "I don't think they will actually accept your proposal," Debo said in surprise. "Don't get too excited, focus on the fight." Eo coldly replied, "Don't worry, I'm also an experienced adventurer now." Debo began to observe the other adventurers around and muttered, "The atmosphere here is indeed tense." And suddenly, at that moment, a blond uncle spoke up, saying to them, "Oh, there are newcomers." You guys are from the Gaffo Mechanics Association, right? Nice to meet you. I'm Sudan, an E-rank adventurer from the Janus Mechanics Association. Eo over here, upon hearing this, coldly said, I'm Eo Palmi, a C-rank adventurer. And Eo's rank truly startled Sudan. What a C-rank, I thought only mages of 1 or 2 circles could enter this gate. How can a C-rank person... But he hadn't finished speaking when a voice came from behind the crowd. Let me talk to him for a moment, okay? I have something to discuss with him. This voice belonged to a blonde girl dressed like a knight. Sudan saw this and clicked his tongue, walking away while grumbling, what a waste of time, turning back to Eo after seeing the girl's appearance. He also recalled the conversation with Abbas earlier. Why should I do that? Eo asked curiously, but Abbas didn't intend to answer in detail, so he immediately said, just take the order and work. Why are you asking so much? Our association will cooperate with the Cinnamon Knights in this matter. Following the ideals of Queen Cygnus, the strongest army, the Cygnus Knights, are praised by the world as a symbol of strength and power and have begun to pay attention to the gates. 3 quotas for the gates have been quickly snatched by other associations, so we have to ally with them even if they only send an amateur team. 3 quotas for the portals have been quickly snatched up by other associations, so we have to ally with them even if they only send an amateur team. The odds are, success will still be much higher even though they are plotting something when approaching this gate. But cooperating with them isn't bad. Hung, hearing that, calmly said, I understand it's just an alliance. Hung didn't think things were that simple. He felt something was off. Abyss had just said, returning to reality, the blonde girl introduced herself as Kiri, the leader of the amateur team of the Cygnus Knights. I hope you know your place and don't have any illusions because we've talked a bit and I don't want to encounter too many troubles. So be quiet and follow my orders, and of course her words also made him uneasy. Bo on the opposite side felt angry. What kind of damn attitude is this? Kiri here seemed not to notice his displeased face, so she continued to ask, Are you two the only team sent here by the Gaffo Mechanic Association? That's right, Eel calmly replied, and Kiri exhaled, saying, So the Gaffo Association has given up the game. And as she said this, 2 other associations had also brought people here. First was the Crocus Mechanic Association, then the Media Mechanic Association led by Kuben Debo. Just looking at their demeanor, one could sense the difference. They were all elites from other associations. The atmosphere had completely changed, but it wasn't over yet. At this moment, 3 red-haired girls approached. With an incredibly confident demeanor, they were from the Goldrick Mechanic Association, the 3 sisters of Natasha. Upon seeing them, Kiri expressed her displeasure, saying, They look so arrogant. Their appearance also marked that all associations had arrived, so the host's voice rang out, greeting everyone. My name is Long, the one chosen to guard this place and assist those who escape from the exit. Surely everyone has heard from your manager. Return to the gate. But I will remind you once again, the legendary items that drop from the gate will not belong to you in any form. The ownership rights belong to the association you are working for. Of course, you will also receive corresponding rewards. Finally, you should be happy to keep the magic stones. Furthermore, if you intend to seize supplies for yourselves, then everyone will have to face a group of B-level adventurers. He said this while pointing to the back where 3 adventurers were waiting. Bo on this side also paid attention to these 3 people. Then, he was startled when he saw the number of magical rings on their wrists. 5 rings, their whole group had 5 rings as well. He was astonished, thinking, while Long had finished explaining everything. He said, I've finished speaking. I wish everyone a safe journey. Following his words, the adventurer groups began to step inside, and at this moment, Kiri turned to Elle, saying, Follow me. I will lead the way. I will be the only one who can successfully clear the gate. Hearing her confidently say that, he was startled. Did she think her mind was okay? Do I really have to cooperate with her? But Bo on this side didn't pay attention to him. He was staring intently at the gate, thinking that all his efforts until now were to enter the gate. This is a gate I've never set foot in, not even in my past life, but I must succeed. The chain of events has now begun. Thinking of this, he said to Bo, Let's go. Hung at the back saw this and hurriedly followed, saying, Hung, even if they cry and beg, I won't help. A report from the Red Gate. 100 people first reported. The Genesis Association has been wiped out. The Media Association has been wiped out. The Dick Association has been wiped out. The Sky Association has been wiped out. The El Nido Association has been disbanded. The Goldrick Association has been disbanded. All members of the associations are dead. The result of the raid report is a failure. Let's go back to the time when this night adventure group just started entering the Red Gate. At this moment, what appeared before them was a vast field. "It's immense. Everyone follow me," someone spoke up while the guy walked. This guy is still overwhelmed by the sight before him. "Oh my, what kind of grass is this so big? Do you think we came here just to enjoy the scenery?" "Hurry up," Kiri reminded, causing the guy to move faster. This guy felt a bit annoyed. "Bro, are you really going to let it be like this? Why are they—" He turned to ask, but when he saw the guy pressing his ear to the ground, he paused for a moment and then asked, "What are you doing?" However, before he could get an answer not far from them, suddenly numerous heavy footsteps appeared. Accompanied by a layer of dust, the cause of this dust storm was none other than a herd of super muscular domestic pigs with a red ribbon wrapped around them. I wonder who wrapped them up. The sound came from the herd of about 1,000 pigs charging towards the group, causing them to shout as they saw the pigs rushing towards them like Formula One racing cars. And while everyone was panicking, Kiri immediately regained her composure and shouted, "What are you doing? Spread out and attract their attention quickly." Some teams had not yet entered. Isn't there an unwritten rule that participating teams should not interfere immediately? Other adventurers hearing this clicked their tongues in annoyance, but quickly spread out to the sides. "Mechanics Il Nido over here." A certain mage shouted, but these people refused. "We will go this way, just like that." The formation of the adventurer group was cut through by this herd, but even so, it didn't mean they would really let the group go. These pig-headed creatures immediately split their formation and chased after them as if they were relentless. And at this moment, the Cinnamon Knights group led by Kiri also ran away in a hurry. "Not good, let's head towards the forest because there are many obstacles there. We will hunt them there," Kiri commanded, but before she could say much, a knight beside her spoke up. "Kiri, we have a problem. We have lost tracks of the mechanic Gafor." "What?" she exclaimed in shock, while the two-person team of L seemed quite relaxed after the recent chaos. Refreshing, isn't it? "It seems we can relax now. But how do you know the herd of pigs will attack?" The guy smiled as he escaped a dangerous situation, while the other guy calmly explained, "Based on my experience in such a vast field, groups of monsters usually appear with the average length of the herd of pigs being 2 meters. They are very aggressive monsters that often move in packs, in numbers ranging from hundreds to thousands. Although it's difficult, it's not impossible to defeat them just like other mechanic groups. It's just that they wouldn't want to waste energy right from the start, so they want to separate this herd of pigs now. We can't know which monsters will appear, so it's definitely not the end." The conquest of the 100 people at Sleepwood in a past life ended in failure. With the death of all adventurers, he recalled his memories while the guy saw him deep in thought and also asked, "What are you thinking about?" As he spoke, he turned to look at his waist, and this distracted him. Below his feet, there was a taut wire that he bumped into next. A sharp trap suddenly sprang up from the ground directly towards him. Fortunately, his waist reacted in time and pulled this young man back. That's how he escaped a fate. What was that, a trap who would set these up here? As he spoke, his face turned a deep shade of purple. At that moment, somewhere in the forest, a sound of a rope being cut suddenly rang out. Immediately, a sharp stake was aimed straight at an unidentified adventurer, but this bald guy was not one to back down, even without turning around. He also noticed that there was a trap aimed at him and immediately swung his sword, slicing the sharp stake in half. It was indeed a pitiful sight. This guy spoke with a tone full of disdain, as if looking down on those who set this trap. Well, his teammates who were with him also sheathed their swords and reported, "We have disarmed all the traps." That was the last one. Among the group, the somewhat casual bald guy reminded them not to let their guard down. The owner of this voice was Crocus. He belonged to the Mechanic Guild. He looked at the destroyed traps around and remarked that although they were still incomplete, they were very dangerous and even mimicked human hunting methods. From this, it could be inferred that they were not ordinary monsters, if they were monsters with this level of intelligence. They must be quite troublesome so they could be the monsters from the Red Gate. I can vaguely guess that this gate has a high difficulty level. Unless it's an adventurer of the same level as me, otherwise the others will die hopelessly. "I will find the best solution," he spoke up, but no one responded. "Hey, be careful not to let your guard down." Crocus turned back to remind them, but the only thing he witnessed was the belongings of Babalel being cleared away. Then a light flashed and aimed straight at all the adventurers, causing them to log out immediately, even the confident Crocus. But in the moment of surprise, because this scene had also been approached by some assassin. Sneaking up from behind and sending him to meet the Grim Reaper, the fool kept babbling as if he knew everything this assassin laughed and said, and they hadn't even truly encountered the monster yet. But these people had already started turning on each other. The scene shifted to a corner of the grassy field at this moment. The voice of an anonymous man also rang out, redirecting attention right at the entrance with the pigs. It was unknown whose idea it was, but thanks to that, things had become much easier. I should act right away. Because everything was going smoothly. Oh, it's really annoying. But time is running out, so I have to deal with it. Let's get started, shall we? He said while slowly standing up meanwhile. The three sisters of Natasha were also standing behind him. However, there was a strange thing. It seemed that their sisters were in a state of immobility and were trying to move their bodies, but unfortunately reality was too harsh for them. When that cross-eyed guy started to turn and talk, trying to move was pointless anyway. This magic is like that. It takes at least 30 minutes. Why did you do that? The eldest sister trembled and said the puppet lost its lag. After hearing that, she was a bit surprised and impressed. In that state, he could still talk. Just as expected from Natasha, since it looked dangerous. Let's just deal with you right away. After saying that, he didn't let the eldest sister say another word and immediately activated a magic spell that pierced through her body from behind. The two younger sisters saw this and turned pale with fear, saying about the cross-eyed guy, the eldest sister is done for. Then he finally answered her question. You really asked a tough one. Why am I doing this? At this point, he also noticed the other two and realized, would it be easier to understand if I explained it this way? What all hack mages do, this rocket guy said while showing an extremely perverted face, and right after that, his magic was activated and blew away the bodies of the other two sisters. After finishing this, the pervert let out a breath. They have no better ending. Now I really want to rest, he said while recalling memories from not long ago. When he was called by that white-haired villain, William, yes, I'm listening, he hurriedly said, I've been waiting for this day for a long time. We have escaped their gaze, concealed our identities, and delved deep to spread our power and influence throughout the guild. Now the time has come. I won't let you down, William asserted, and to be sure, the white-haired guy also threw him a feather and explained, take this. It's a gift from him. Failure will not be tolerated. Back to the present. The feather was tied around his neck like a string. I shouldn't extinguish it, right? I guess there's no other way. It seems I need to try a bit harder. This guy whispered and began to leave the area to hunt others. Time quickly passed until evening. The scene shifted to the camp of the green-skinned creatures. At this moment, a two-person team was also quietly observing this base. But after seeing the scale and operation of the monsters, the young man almost wanted to go home. What is this? Do you mean all of them are bosses? I'm sure I explained to you at the beginning that only a few of them are bosses. The young man sighed when he had to repeat this. However, the young man didn't feel any less worried after hearing that. Whether they are bosses or not, it doesn't matter. Besides their innate strength, they are also very aggressive. Just facing one of them already carries enough risks. Not only that, but it seems they have collected the spoils, the items of dead adventurers, so dealing with them will be even harder. Because some variants can use skills through those items. The waist spoke up as a reminder that made the young general really want to go home, already covered with a blanket. What does that mean? So they are indeed an entire team of adventurers, aren't they? Just the two of us going to fight them. You understand the issue quickly, that's great. The waist nodded in praise, but what about the guy who went to the bathroom? Doesn't he want this compliment? What are you talking about? I'm trying to point out that just the two of us can't do that. We need to join up with Kiki or Kiri or something. He shouted in the softest voice so as not to attract the attention of the monsters behind. Why not? Don't you want to separate because you don't want to work with them? Elle wondered, saying it was because he didn't know about these monsters. Anyway, just the two of us can't do it. The guy insisted that no matter what Elle did, he was determined not to go to his death. Just the two of us. We don't want to die. We should all die together. Saying that is one thing. After that, I don't know how, but he managed to convince them to go. The plan for the first attack was for them to wait for the green-skinned ones to patrol alone, and as soon as they felt an opportunity to attack, they charged in without hesitation. Unfortunately, his attack was dodged by the green-skinned one just in time. Seriously, he did that on purpose, didn't he? At that moment, I didn't say I was going to take them all on alone. The guy gritted his teeth while the green-skinned one immediately swung its giant arm back to counterattack. However, the young man reacted very quickly. He immediately planted his axe into the ground and jumped back behind the monster. Next was a cat-and-mouse game from both green-skinned ones continuously attacking, while Daibo tried to dodge the dangerous attacks coming from them. The fake was continuously pushed back, which made it difficult for him. Daibo was a bit annoyed, so right after dodging a punch from it, he immediately gave the monster a stick to the face, making it stick out its tongue. You're too loud, you bastard! After saying that, he quickly swung his axe straight into one side of the monster's leg, causing it to fall to the ground immediately. Then Daibo took advantage of the opportunity. While the big guy was in pain and off balance, he immediately circled around to the back of the monster to launch an attack. He decided this was the end. He shouted and slammed his axe down hard, but unfortunately his attack hit the ground for some reason. The monster was clearly injured in the leg, but still moved as fast as a squirrel to dodge. Even right after that, it took the opportunity while Daibo hadn't regained his stance and threw a punch straight to his face, sending the young man flying like a rocket backward. "Why are you so hard to kill?" Daibo gritted his teeth and said, but in response he received a devastating punch from the green-skinned one. Even the tree behind him was smashed by its punch. If he hadn't quickly bent down to dodge, if it weren't for him quickly bending down to dodge, then perhaps he has logged out for good. However, this is also the opportunity for Daibo to counterattack immediately. He seized this chance and swung his axe, severing the right arm of the creature, causing it to scream in pain. But then this monster stealthily ignored the pain and slammed its remaining arm into his face. It began treating Daibo's body like a toy. Then it slammed him hard into the ground, creating a large hole in the earth. But before the monster could attack again, he quickly wrapped his legs around the arm of this creature. At the same time, he pressed the handle of his axe against its hand and prepared to break the monster's arm, which made the green-skinned creature panic. It hurriedly swung its arm with great force, flinging Daibo far away. He let out a loud scream and then charged back into battle with this monster once again. Time quickly passed, and victory belonged to Daibo as the large creature lay motionless in a pool of blood. He thought he would come to help me. Daibo complained to his companion nearby, who seemed to think he could handle everything alone. Thus he also realized they were not unbeatable. Knowing my gut is increasingly suspicious of this mission. If there was an entire army of those things, Daibo grumbled, but right after that, his voice fell silent as he witnessed the horrifying scene ahead where countless corpses of adventurers who had entered this gate lay. "What is all this? Weren't they all members of the Cinnamon Knights? What the hell happened here?" Daibo said in confusion, and right after that, a painful sound echoed, catching both of their attention. One person was still alive. After saying that, they hurriedly ran toward a tree where a knight was still trying to hold on. "What happened here? Did the goblins attack you?" Daibo hurriedly asked, and the knight across from him gritted his teeth and replied that the goblins were not the ones who did this. Transitioning to Abyss's location after taking a puff of smoke, he became sober enough to think that something was not right. Opportunists, these gates that no one knows about. Only a few people can enter. Their purpose is to gather information and attack the remaining adventurers, because that type of gate will disappear after they escape, so all evidence of their wrongdoing will vanish with it. However, this time it was almost a battle with no chance of winning because they would have to overcome this difficulty. When exhausted, a person can only be left with a few threads of hope, even if they somehow pass that trial and bring out a unique item they cannot avoid. The suspicions of those outside the gate. In the end, they are the elite of the guilds. We cannot let that happen. In the end, they are the elite circles of the associations. We can't possibly. No matter what their purpose is, if this news somehow gets out, they will have to go to war with the other guilds. A guild would not engage in such a dangerous gamble. So what does this mean, and what greater purpose does it serve? He silently speculated to himself. Back with L's group, the knight in front had recounted everything, leaving Daibo a bit bewildered. Could it be that he thought I didn't think I would see that girl here? Eel nodded and spoke, while the knight at that moment became so angry that he slammed his fist on the ground. "Damn it, it's all my fault. Who would have thought she was the traitor among us?" "But why would Kiri do that?" Eel asked after hearing this. "I don't understand why she, being part of the Cinnamon Knights, would betray us." "I don't really understand either. No matter how I think about it, I can't figure it out. However, upon reconsidering everything, the orders she gave at the entrance seemed to be part of her plan before resolving everything here. She herself had stated that she was a disciple of that dark sorcerer, Hack," he bitterly said. And the information about a dark sorcerer being present here startled Daibo. A dark sorcerer from 800 years ago, he was an extraordinary existence. Along with many of his disciples, he threatened the realm of protection, and to stop him, the 6 heroes united to defeat him. That battle was filled with darkness. The sorcerer and his forces were completely at a disadvantage when he and the 6 heroes were sealed along with the army of his disciples trapped in the chaotic allied forces. They counterattacked and wiped out the dark sorcerer's disciples. Any citizen of the realm of protection knows that the story unfolded that way. It couldn't possibly be a disciple of the Dark Sorcerer. Chodibo stammered, "Yes." Meanwhile, our main character over here, after hearing this, suggested this is not the time to worry about these monsters. We need to go find her. Are you coming with us? You should prepare to fight her when the two sides meet. That's exactly what I want, the guy said with determination, transitioning to Kiri's position, where she was also hurriedly moving as if something was chasing her from behind. However, she had to suddenly brake when William blocked her path ahead. "Oh, welcome. We've been waiting for you for a long time, Kiri. Ha, it seems you are the one who killed the piglets. Thanks to everyone being in different places, we have been able to continue executing the plan easily. Now we can slowly finish it up." "That's right. Did you receive the package we sent you?" He laughed as Kiri realized she had been set up and quickly drew her sword. "Who are you?" she demanded, turning back to L's group. At this moment, Chodibo was also helping the knight along. "If you're injured too much, we can take it slow." After all, he was already ahead. "Thank you, I'm fine." He shook his head in refusal. "Don't worry, our boss is very good at finding things. I'm sure we will meet her soon." Chodibo affirmed, unaware that danger was approaching him. "I understand then, that's good." As he spoke, he began to channel mana into his dagger. Speaking of Kiri, she was now facing all these wicked people alone, in a way doomed. They fought from night until dawn, and William, who was behind, saw that Kiri could withstand so many consecutive attacks alone, so he couldn't help but praise her. "Amazing, or rather just as expected from the training captain of the Cinnamon Night Squad. I wonder how much longer she can hold out," he said with delight as he turned back to the battle with Kiri after dodging an attack from some brown-clad guy. She also began to use her skill called Rising Sun, creating a symbol circle resembling the sun behind her, and of course the other attackers were not foolish. To give her enough time to use her flashy skill was quite enough. That green-haired guy shouted while swinging his sword hard, aiming straight at Kiri, but she immediately raised her sword high to block the next attack. The girl also used a super speed to retract her sword and swung it again, aiming straight at his neck. "Wait!" he shouted in a hurry. Before being sliced into countless pieces by Kiri's sun-slash technique, however, although this technique was powerful, it consumed quite a lot of energy. So right after using it, Kiri began to breathe heavily. "Reveal your intentions or you will die here." She started to threaten, and her words made William, who was behind, feel a bit annoyed. "What are you guys doing? Quickly deal with her," he said. The three hunting dogs immediately charged in to attack all at once, shouting in unison as they died, while Kiri gripped her sword tightly to prepare for defense. However, at that very moment, suddenly from the grass nearby, a dark shadow sprang out, and shortly after, the swordsman in the middle was chopped into 3 pieces before the astonished eyes of the others, and the one who struck was none other than the guy who had just arrived. To explain why he appeared here, we must go back a few hours earlier when he was still assisting the Cinnamon Knight at that time. When he began to concentrate energy into his dagger, he immediately used one hand to choke Daibo, while the other aimed the dagger straight at him. "I'm good. Send my regards to Kiri when we meet." This guy laughed as if he had seen the scene of Daibo lying in a pool of blood. However, fate had other plans. Just as his dagger was about to reach Daibo suddenly from afar, a fire arrow shot forth, blowing off this guy's arm. At this moment, our naive Daibo finally realized that he had almost met his end and hurriedly tossed the knight aside. "What the hell?" he screamed in agony, as one of his arms bid farewell to its owner while the guy next to him still didn't understand what was happening. "What's going on?" he asked. At this point, he frowned, observing, and said, "Just as I expected, it's disgusting. Sorry to say this to you, but I don't have a habit of trusting others." As he spoke, he began to activate his rocket magic to send this guy to the underworld, returning to reality. Daibo's sudden appearance also forced William to show himself. "How strange, an uninvited guest has appeared," he complained, while the hunting dogs beside him immediately recognized Daibo's identity and reminded Lord William. "He is from the Gafo Mechanic Association. His survival means..." Without letting him finish, William understood. "I see, Peyton, it seems that this useless rabbit is truly useless. I gave him a chance to work. Was I wrong?" This guy muttered, then turned his gaze towards the two. "How annoying you two seem strong. I guess we have to take matters into our own hands." According to his words, the others also began to stretch their shoulders and necks, and Kiri immediately warned to be careful of them. "I know they are perverts, right?" Daibo smiled, and at that moment, William also commanded his hunting dogs to charge and attack them. "You can at least handle one, right? I will deal with the rest. Don't be overconfident," Kiri reminded, and right after that, the one with the sword ran first and used a skill called Death Strike, aimed directly at both of them, but Daibo immediately jumped to the side to dodge the attack. He even quickly swung his axe to counterattack. This nearly caused the brown-haired guy to die, but Daibo didn't give him a chance to regain his balance and continued to attack, saying, "Die, brat." Debo laughed and began to envelop his axe with mana. However, before he could swing the axe to attack, the guy in the red shirt behind him used a crossbow to attack him to relieve the pressure on the other guy. After seeing that, Debo had dodged, and this guy clicked his tongue in annoyance, saying, "You cowardly rat," but as Debo focused on the guy in front, another one had approached him from behind, and before he could react, he received a surprise attack from this one. This caused a shallow wound to appear on his shoulder. Not enough damage, huh? Don't worry, I will free you right now. Suddenly attacking, he shouted and charged at Daibo once more, while Kiri beside him also saw this and yelled, "What are you doing, you fool?" And somehow, when this guy's sword slashed down, Daibo dodged and slipped behind him, thinking, "What do you think I'm doing? Clearly I'm playing with him." After saying that, he directly swung the hammer at this guy, splitting him in half. "You bastard." Someone shouted while stabbing a spear towards him, but Daibo easily dodged and even executed a brutal slash. This pushed the spear wielder back. "Damn it, why is he so strong?" The spear wielder gritted his teeth, but right after that, he suddenly realized something was flying towards him, so he hurriedly jumped to the side to dodge. And the one flying was none other than the brown-shirted guy who, before facing Kiri, had been thoroughly beaten by her. "You call yourselves elites," she mocked, causing the armored guy to grit his teeth but unable to do anything. In the end, William could no longer watch his underlings take a beating, so he started to take action. "It seems I can't just stand by anymore. You guys can only go this far. We've wasted too much time already." While speaking, he began to use missile magic and aimed a projectile directly at Daibo. What could be faster than the boss? Debo thought in shock, and right after that, a large explosion occurred. "You were overconfident just because it was a missile, weren't you? But my missile is on a different level. It happened suddenly. You were complacent just because it was a missile, weren't you? But my missile is on a different level. But you know you can't avoid it. It's over. We should deal with the next dungeon now." This cross-eyed guy smiled and said, but his group hadn't even left yet. His eyes were already wide open. While waiting for the flames to subside, Daibo was still intact and Eel's figure appeared in front of you. "How could this guy be confused?" he said. Meanwhile, Eo also began to use his mental power ring and pointed to the side where another guest was coming here. "Be careful, you bastards." And right after Eel finished this sentence, a giant pig charged straight out from the bushes, or rather, it had been lured by some wooden stake. Because Eel used his mental power to control it, causing these two to be startled and unable to react, or rather, there wasn't just one. There was a whole herd. As time passed, the lead pig fell before William's firepower, but dealing with such a large number of monsters also made this guy pant like a dog, really exhausting. "Can't believe they dared to use this pig to escape." Lord Zero shouted a question to the situation of the guys next to Lord William. "Excuse me, we just finished handling things over here." He hurriedly replied, and William, after hearing this, told the whole group that they didn't have time to reorganize, so they needed to chase after Eo's group immediately. The reason William was in such a hurry was that he was worried whether Eo's group would take this time to escape through the gate or not, and if they really did, it would leave very troublesome consequences, or rather, if Eo's group went outside and recounted everything that happened inside to the B-level insurance guys. Outside, they would be doomed, however, at this moment. William also sensed something very strange about Eo, but he couldn't put it into words. "Lord William has footprints over here," someone shouted. "If you encounter the guy in the cloak, just hold him back." "I will handle him myself," the cross-eyed guy ordered. "But the others seemed a bit worried, sir, I don't think. You don't have to face him alone if you allow me to think he's not just a small fry." "Are you worried about me? Don't you know? There will never be anyone stronger than me in this gate," he declared boldly.